Welcome back to another episode of Backlog Crew. Here at Press 8 to Talk, my name is Ryder. Today I'm joined with Kurt
Hello.
and John.
Hello.
Now, if you're new to Backlog Crew, I guess the whole point of this is that we each kind of take turns picking a game from our personal backlog, whether that be a retro game, like what we're going to be talking about today, which feels weird to call it a retro game, but I think,
It is for sure.
26 years counts at this point.
The Wii is retro.
Or maybe
I too.
the Wii
am
is retro. I guess, yeah, we all count as retro now. Or maybe we might be a little bit newer. We've done anything from, Metal Gear Solid, which I believe is the oldest game, up to, something as new as Mortal Shell might be the newest game we played.
I think
For
Lala's
my
the
game.
newest one.
Oh, yeah, no, you're
Our
right.
last
That
video.
came out 2023.
2022,
So
I think.
2022? Who cares? The developer of Who's Lila probably cares. So
The
I
developer
apologize.
cares. It's a good game. You should play it
It's a very good game.
and watch our video.
Anywho, so now that we're here, the game I chose this time was Spyro. This is a game that we'll go into a little bit later as far as our individual backgrounds. But like I said, this is officially very retro, I guess. This is on the earlier half of gaming, probably. If you're looking at gaming as a full timeline, this is probably fit like the first half of video games at this point, which is crazy to think about. It was originally released in 1998 for the PlayStation 1 and was developed by Insomniac Games. They're now known for Spyro, of course, Ratchet and Clank, Resistance, and most recently the Spider-Man video game series that features 2018's Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales from 2020, Spider-Man 2 in 2023, and actually, I didn't know this until researching for this, Wolverine, which is going to be released sometime, maybe. Who knows?
They showed a teaser of him sitting in a bar and then his claws come out. So any day now.
Yeah, any day now.
Yeah.
I tried looking and I could not find anything definitive, so who knows? But I did know the game was in development. That's exciting to know that Insomniac's working on it. They have a pretty strong track record at this point. I also didn't know that. I always assumed that Insomniac was owned by Sony, a subsidiary company, and they were not until recently. Spyro is really one of the cornerstones of early PlayStation. I mean, if you think of,
which is really interesting now, because sorry to cut you off.
You're good.
I'm pretty sure the Spyro license is currently owned or being worked on by Toys for Bob, who made Crash 4, which is owned by Microsoft. So Crash and Spyro are technically Microsoft properties at this point in time.
Huh.
But that's the thing, is they're actually not. So, yeah. Apparently, Insomniac never owned the rights to Spyro. They just developed the original 3 games. Universal Interactive is actually who owned the rights to the Spyro games. They produced them and kind of gave their rights over to Insomniac, who at that point had only made one game that commercially failed. And critically, it actually done pretty well. It's a first-person shooter sci-fi game that I can't remember the name of now.
I got you.
It's Disruptor is the name of that game, just for reference.
It's a Disruptor.
Mm-hmm. So that interesting turn of events there, but now they went from being, like we said, a kind of cornerstone of early PlayStation to now on pretty much every platform as far as the Reignited trilogy goes. And I'll go a little bit into this later as far as all the releases. But you think of early PlayStation mascots, but Spyro and Crash Bandicoot are like the two that come to mind. You can maybe make an argument for a few others from the PlayStation 1 era, but I really think that as far as any type of branding goes, Spyro and Crash were like on pretty much everything. Synonymous with PlayStation, the same way that Mario or Donkey Kong would be with Nintendo. As far as the development goes, like I said, Insomniac developed the original 3 games between 1998 to the year 2000, I believe. There was about a decade of video games in between the original release of Spyro the Dragon in 1998 to the, I guess, ultimate hiatus or dormant period for Spyro think a bit of oversaturation at the time just kind of killed a lot of interest. In order for Insomniac, there's Spyro the Dragon, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and Spyro Year of the Dragon. All three commercially and critically did extremely well. After that, there's Spyro Season of Ice, Spyro Season of Flame, which are the first non-Sony platform games actually released for the Game Boy Advance. I did play those growing up. And then Spyro Enter the Dragon, which is the first console release that was outside of just Sony exclusivity. So it moved on to the GameCube as well as the PS2. I think a lot of people would probably remember around 2006, there was a huge switch up where Chrome Studios took over development for the Spyro series and took it in a completely different direction with The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning, which had Elijah Wood as a voice actor for Spyro. I just
did not know that.
Yeah, I played the original. I guess the original in that new reboot, and I enjoyed it, but it's completely different type of gameplay, and they're trying to take it in a more serious direction. Interesting enough, but ultimately probably it just really failed at trying to revitalize the franchise. Ultimately, it did turn into a trilogy. The Legend of Spyro trilogy is what that's called. It ended in 2008, and the series sat dormant for 10 years until Spyro Reignited trilogy released in 2018, which was developed by Toys for Bob. Now, as far as everyone's, I guess, exposure to Spyro, I guess anyone want to take the floor on that and tell, kind of what you knew about Spyro, how much experience you had with Spyro before this?
Go ahead, John.
All right. Well, hearing you talk about all the different Spyro games, it had me going back in time and remembering all the ones I played. I gotta say, the one I think I played the most was Year of the Dragon, because as I was finishing this game up and talking to one of my cousins about it, we were talking about the one we played the most, and we went and jumped into that one to look at the beginning, and we both vividly remembered the beginning area of the third game, and so it was fun to go down that nostalgia trip. But I played the first three a lot, and then the ones on the Game Boy, as well as the one on the GameCube. But after that, I didn't do that Legend of Spyro series. So everything but the Legend of Spyro.
Okay.
So Spyro is what I consider to be like one of the biggest holes in my gaming knowledge, because I grew up solely on Nintendo systems. Played Xbox 360 when my brother bought one in college, and then I got a PS4, and by that time, Spyro wasn't really a thing until the Reignited trilogy a couple years ago. I was aware growing up that Spyro was like a really popular PlayStation mascot kind of thing, but just never had the opportunity to play. I did play 3 different Crash Bandicoot games on Game Boy Advance, and I knew that there was a Crash Bandicoot Spyro crossover set of games. And so, yes, Crash Blue, Purple, and Spyro Orange. And so I kind of assumed they were similar.
Mm-hmm.
But having played Spyro, they're really not similar. So this was just a completely new thing for me.
So I knew this was going to come up. I didn't realize it was going to be so quick. I had a great analogy for Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So basically how I see Spyro is basically a regular version of what Crash Bandicoot is. So if you played through Spyro and then you've seen Crash Bandicoot as a kid, you were like, "Oh, these games were similar. I would like Crash Bandicoot now. I just played Spyro. It's fun." And Crash Bandicoot is basically if you want to play Spyro but also hate yourself.
What do you mean?
It's so much more difficult.
It is
difficult.
It is a lot better though.
Well,
we can talk about that throughout the episode, but
most importantly, let us know in the comment section what you think. Yeah.
as someone who has played, so here's my exposure. So I've played, I guess the first Spyro game I played was Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, which, Kurt, I would understand you thinking that Crash Bandicoot is, I'm assuming at this point, you've not played any Spyro past this one.
I've played the first Spyro game, and I have of the Reignited trilogy. I played the first Crash game of the Insane trilogy. I did play those
Okay.
Game Boy Advance games, but those are like side scrollers. Those are basically a different genre. So I'm comparing like head to head the first entries in the series.
Okay. I think that is a very fair assessment if you're going like 1-to-1 on the first games.
Mhm.
But I think that like Spyro 2 and Spyro 3 are like, I think this is a good game, just disclosure. But I think that 2 and 3 are like head and shoulders above this. They take a lot of the early, ideas and just flesh them out so much better. And like, it's not just a full collectathon in those. There's actual, each world, each level has its own kind of story encapsulated in it. And so I think it's a very strong argument that Spyro is better overall, but I do understand that point of view. But I'll continue now. So Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage is the first game that I played in this series. I believe it was for maybe Christmas around 2001 or so. My aunt actually got it for PS1. I remember her bringing it over to our house because we had a PlayStation 1 and she was trying to like, hey, look at what I got. My aunt was basically my older sister, so she brought it over to show it off and put it in our PlayStation. And I played like 15-30 minutes, like the opening world. And I remember being like, so can I borrow this? She's like, no, I literally just got this morning. I was like, okay. In my defense, I was like 5'4". So, kind of selfish.
Makes sense.
But later on, though, this is probably 2003-ish. I remember being in Walmart with my dad, and it was like right after my birthday. I was with my mom and my dad, and I had like $20 cash. And I remember walking through the video game section, and I saw Spyro the Dragon. And I played a lot of Spyro on my aunt's PlayStation because she never let me have it, which is fair. And I was like, "Ooh, I want this!" And so Spyro the Dragon was the very first video game I ever bought. And part of how I remember this really well is because later on we were walking through the toy aisle with my younger siblings, and I saw that they had the Return of the King swords, the Aragorn sword. I can't remember the Shards of Narsil, whatever it's remade into. I can't remember the name of the sword. Anyways,
Andrew?
Yeah, exactly, Andreil, right? But it was already like had like the sound effects on it. You could push it and it like swing and clang, and then I of course saw that and was like, oh, well, I want that. And I looked at the game that I had and I was like, I want that. And my dad was like, well, you don't have any money. And I was like, well, but no, I don't want Spyro anymore. I want that. Can we take this back? He's like, no, it's too much effort. And he's like, I tell you what, I'll buy the sword for you, but I get to keep Spyro. And I was like, but I want both. And he's like, that's not how it works either. So anyways, he ended up buying the sword for me and he got Spyro. The funny thing is he never ever played Spyro. So I basically got both anyway because I got to play Spyro on my dad's copy technically. Anywho, that's my first experience with it. I beat the first game and the second game. I played bits and pieces of the third game, but never completely finished it. After playing this, I do think I'll actually go back and replay the second and third game as well on the Reignited trilogy, which brings me to kind of where we're at now. So all three of us played this as a part of the 2018 Reignited trilogies, Spyro the Dragon. This I'll go into this a little bit later. So let's just start with the gameplay side of it. So it's a 3D platforming game. Action adventure, I guess, would be your genre for it. And I think that collectathon is maybe a good way to describe it. It's not essential, but it's
yes, it is.
Well, it is essential, but not 100% in collectathon unless you're John. Or maybe myself in this case. I don't know why I decided to do it, but I did. So as far as the core gameplay loop, it's pretty much the exact same thing over and over and over again with very, very slight variations on it. So you can pretty much charge, you can flame, you can jump, and you can glide. And sometimes you can supercharge, and sometimes you can super flame. Sometimes you can super jump, and sometimes you can super not really glide, more like flying. So those are the gameplay elements. That's pretty much all this
that's the
game
game.
is. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Backlog Crew. And Kurt, looked like you were about to say something.
Is it too late for me to like go in on this game, or like too early? I mean,
No, I don't think so.
okay, because you just described all the mechanics. You described all the mechanics that I interacted with in the first 2 levels, and thought to myself, "This is interesting. I can't wait to see how they build on this." And they proceeded to not build on that for the next 5 hours and the next like 12 levels. And it's an old game with a new coat of paint, and I was really trying to keep that in perspective like throughout the whole thing. But like Crash 1 is an old game with a new coat of paint, and that's really good. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But
This is still good. It's just
I was
very
gonna
easy.
say, this is a good game.
yeah, and that's fine. There are things to like about it, but it's just one of the things that I was like, I wouldn't finish this if I wasn't doing this for Backlog Crew.
Huh.
Like around World 3, like right before the halfway point, I was like, I'm okay. Let's buckle down and just finish this up.
And you finish Pokemon Snap. I don't
Because
understand.
I know what the save button looks like.
It's a bad game.
And also, that's a much shorter game. It's like an hour and a half long.
It was not if you lost your save
If
progress.
you didn't press the save button. All right, I'm sorry. We have all the time in the world to talk about this game. I'm not trying to like shut it down right at the front. So let's keep going. I'm sorry.
John, go ahead and kick him from the call if you can.
That's so much work for me in
I had nice
editing.
things to say too. I just when we were talking about the mechanics, it just
Yeah, no, I agree. We can get into this a little bit later as well. But I don't disagree with that, and that's why I do think the second game is better because it allows you to actually swim. You know, climb walls and stuff. There's new abilities and stuff that make the next games better. That's neither here nor there. We're talking about Spyro 1 for right now. So starting with Spyro 1,
Yay!
the whole concept pretty much revolves around you're in the Dragon's world. You pretty much start off, I guess, in the Artisan's world. Each of these worlds has its own kind of theme, which corresponds with a color palette, art style, enemies, everything like that. The intro cutscene to the game gives you pretty much everything you need to know. There's a TV crew interviewing some of the local dragons in the Artisan world. And they're talking about how much treasure they have and how rich they are and how peaceful the world is and how much Gnasty Gnorc sucks. Gnasty Gnorc or Nasty Gnorc, depending on your if you're a dragon or orc. Gnorc, I guess. I don't know the way these species work. I need to go read more about Spyro lore.
There you go.
But he's watching his own TV, and of course, sees this live broadcast, feels quite upset about it, and decides to do something about it because he's not ugly or stupid. And people do like him, so he decides to turn all the dragons into stone and steal all of their treasure for himself with the flick of his wand hammer thing.
That'll make everyone like him.
Spyro. Yeah, that'll do it. Well, everyone who's not a dragon. So that's pretty much where it starts. Spyro is the only dragon left untouched. I'm assuming it's because he's too small for Nasty Gnorc to worry about.
That.
Yeah. That's the only thing
fine.
I can think about. Maybe he's a different species of dragon since he's like on 4 legs instead of 2. Who knows?
He just hasn't
He's
evolved in
just
the
a
world of
little baby.
Pokemon yet.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
love
so
the
he has
opening
to evolve first.
cutscene. It was like it's the perfect setup for just like a really simple game.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was funny when Spyro was just like, "All right, here we go. I know what I'm doing for the next
That's
6
all
hours."
you need to know.
Yeah.
Stealing back treasure and murdering orcs.
Gnorcs.
Yeah, them too.
So I just right off the bat, you start off in the Artisan's world. It's very green, lush world with little sheep, hopping around and making cute meh and boink 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 sounds. It's very very stimulating to the eyes and ears. And I haven't played this myself since I played the original one on the PS1 20-ish years ago. And so you hear all the time about when you're playing a video game, or maybe someone creates fan art to show you what a video game looked like to you when you're a kid playing
That's
it.
what I got.
This is like
thinking.
Yeah, this is like how it was for me, but it's the real deal where you're playing it and you're like, this is how Spyro looked 20 plus years ago. It's absolutely beautiful. The color palette's just stunning. The art is just, I don't know, the art direction is amazing to me, at least. It's just, it all feels so cohesive. It was just a very, very fun nostalgia trip for me. But starting off with the first world, like I said, it's the Artisans. Each world is broken down very formulaically. So you essentially have 3 actual platforming worlds, 1 flight world, and then a boss level in each of these. The core gameplay loop, like we said, consists of running, flaming, and gliding pretty much. But outside of that, the collectathon elements consist of you collecting the gems, which have been stolen, eggs, which have also been stolen by egg thieves, which in my opinion is just not really, it's the least satisfying element of it, because there's nothing that really comes up other than just 1 dragon or 2 dragons like, you have to get those eggs, Spyro. And then that's it. And then the dragons have been turned to stone. Of course, your goal is to step on their pedestal and turn them back into living, breathing dragons. As far as this world goes, who has thoughts on it one way or another? I guess maybe just first thoughts getting into the game. John, you can go ahead and start this, I guess, since you have some previous Spyro experience.
Right. And so that's exactly what I was going to say when it came to remembering this as a child as opposed to playing it now. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly how this game would have looked to 7-year-old me when I was playing it. And whenever I was doing some research in preparation for this video, I was looking at some of the different dragon models that are from the original game, and they're just triangles pieced together on rectangles. And it's kind of funny to me that, that nostalgia factor really comes into play there. But so for the first world, like you were saying about the sheep, it's just nice to see those little critters running around. It's just so bright and vibrant. I know Kurt called it just a fresh coat of paint, but I would say it's a very nice fresh coat of paint.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean that in a minimizing way. The game
Right.
looks amazing, and the animations are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. But just running around the first world and just getting to re-explore that childhood just made me happy. That's all I really got for the first one.
Ryder, did you say developed the Reunited trilogy?
Toys for Bob.
It was Toys for Bob. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job. Like, it's gorgeous. I didn't play the first game, so mechanically, I don't know if they cleaned anything up. I don't know if they made the jump feel better, because jumps didn't feel very good in the 90s. Do you know if they did any of that, guys?
Yes.
They touched up the mechanics.
So, I mean, don't quote me on this.
Sure.
Don't quote me on this. So, when this game was first released, that was during the DualShock 1 era. And even before that, there might have been DualShock precursor, honestly, because I believe DualShock does refer to the, maybe I'm wrong.
2 thumbsticks.
But I remember playing this with the original PlayStation controller, which was just a directional pad. And, I mean, that sucked. That was not fun, having to, trying to run or jump or glide over, certain areas. Now, of course, that might have been my own limitations. I do remember playing as well with the actual thumbsticks. But I don't remember, I'm assuming there's actual 360 control on it, but it just, there's points where I remember as a kid just running into walls, smooth into walls, while especially trying to take tight curves where, I would be pulling as hard as I could, but he wouldn't turn tight enough and still hit a wall. Things like jumps and flights, missing them by the smallest itty bit of space once you're at the end of a glide and just going and falling with
that still happens.
I got to relive that, yeah.
But I do think that once I got the feel of it, I pretty much stopped doing that. There are a few times where I might have screwed the pooch, but I'm actually good at 3D platformers. So I didn't have many issues. Where I went wrong. So yeah. They keep going though.
Yeah, I'll talk about World 1 in just a sec. The glide. It I never felt like you got enough lift from it. And anytime I glided towards any structure, I was like, 50-50 on whether I land on this or where if I dink in 1 inch below and fall to my death. Like it never the heights of the platforms or the heights of the jump. Just I don't know. Maybe it's just me not being used to Spyro. It just didn't feel good.
They tell you very early on the way to counteract it, and if you don't like learn it right then, and I think I realized also as a kid I was not listening. I did not, or I don't think I understood it. But
What did they tell
he
you?
says in like I think it was in it's in the Artisan's world, and it was in one of like the actual sub worlds. You're told to start your glide at the height of your jump,
Well, yeah.
and that. But like, I didn't really have any issues because I would jump and I'd push all the way off, and then I'd start my glide. I realize as I'm telling you this sounds like our friend Joseph telling us about the rolling and jumping and Donkey Kong.
Yeah, that doesn't exist. I don't know what
That's
you're
not a
talking about.
thing. So I don't know. Maybe
I just
get
never
a
got
here.
it. Maybe I just didn't have the timing right. It just, I don't know. Anyway, as far as the first world went, I thought I was clever, guys, because I rescued the first dragon. I was like, first of all, I saw the dragon right in front of you right when you spawned, but I don't know if the game tells you you're supposed to like touch them to free them. But I was like, I gotta figure out how to free these guys, and I immediately just went a different direction until I accidentally ran into one, and they freed. I was like, oh, cool.
I'm an expert now.
Yeah, but the first one I freed was a lute player. I'm like, oh, cool. The next one was a painter. And I was like, oh. And the next one was a baker. And I'm like, wait a second. And then it kept going like sculptor, another painter, a writer. I was like, these are all artists. That's a neat thing. And then I like paused or something. In big letters, it says Artisan's World. I'm like, oh, cool.
I am an expert detective as well.
No, I really love all the designs of all the characters. As far as the world, it was like green grass and gray rocks, and that's about it. Nothing super memorable. The sheep are cute because dragons steal livestock and sheep and stuff, so that's funny. Yeah, World 1 was fine. I still had a sparkle in my eye at that point.
So, are we going over the entirety of World 1 right now? Okay.
In just a very general sense,
Okay.
my idea with this is I don't really want to talk about each world specifically. So if
Right,
you
that
have
makes
anything in
sense,
mind,
yeah,
just
'cause-
throw it out.
Because when we're talking about these worlds, they are just small bits of area that have unique objects in them and stuff. But ultimately, it's just a start and finish. Collect the gems and optionally collect the eggs if they're there, and collect the dragons. But the one I want to talk on is I believe they're called speedways in the game, but these in this game are called flights, and the Sunny Flight. So the first one, anyway, Sunny Flight. How did that go for both of you? How close were you on the times? Did you ever get all of them in one run?
I'm gonna complain real quick, and then Ryder, you can have a good opinion. Okay.
Okay.
The very first one in the first world with the flights, I just was like, I got almost all the trains, and then time ran out, and I was like, let me try to get the other things, and then time ran out, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I was like, I'll come back later, and then I went to the rest of them, and all the other worlds are pretty linear theming, where it's like, here, do this first. Okay, next you have a set of these.
Okay.
And I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention in the first world, but it didn't seem to have a linear path to me
Okay.
when I was playing, so I never went back. Ryder, what's your good opinion?
I think this one's the most difficult.
That's
think
exactly what I was going to say. This is the hardest one.
I 100% of the game. Just
I'm happy for you guys.
and I'll say we can talk about this later. It was a chore.
Yeah.
But
We
we'll
can
talk
talk
about
about
that later. Okay, why not? So
It's a fun chore.
I 100% of the game. So it was until it wasn't. I think it was an enjoyable thing for me to do because there's some things that were like, wow, I feel accomplished doing this.
You feel complete. You feel whole. You feel good.
Yeah, like I've done something good by being able to 100% some levels. There are other levels where I was like, this is who decided to do this? Like, I mean, it's just, I'm not going to say it's not good game design, because sometimes there's some like very, very tight platforming and just level design. At other points, it was just like jump off and fly at like a do like a 110-degree turn, and it's like, who is supposed to figure that out?
that's what made me decide not to complete it, because I completed the first world except for the flight, and I was like, I'll come back for that. And then I get to the second world, and I complete the first level, and I go into I think the second level. I wrote it down. It's called Dry Canyon, and I found everything except for one dragon, and I was like, maybe there might be just some mechanic that I'm not understanding, and I have no shame looking up guides, so I looked up a guide, and it's like, go to the top of this cliff, glide, and then like you just said, immediately basically like make a U-turn around a blind cliff, and he'll be sitting there on a ledge that you can't otherwise see. And I was like, oh, that's what kind of complete like collectathon this is.
Yeah, it was great.
I pretty much decided at that point, I was like, if I'm gonna like play and collect everything I see, and I did. I completed most of the levels in this game, but anytime I couldn't, I would like run through the level once more, and if I just didn't find it, I just didn't find it.
There are like 2 or 3 levels like that for me that just kind of killed it. That was one of them. I think it's the exact same level, because it's just I did look up YouTube video on that because I was like, I don't understand. This does not make any sense to me, because I lost like 4 lives jumping off of like random cliffs and trying to fly, doing like blind flights around the map, trying to figure something out. And then I went and watched that, and I was like, you barely, and that is one where you barely have enough room to clear it as well. So you're not just jumping blind, but you're jumping blind and just barely, skidding onto the platform.
If you missed it, you got to go all the way back around.
Yeah. So I mean that's fair. The 2 though that like drove me crazy, and I know that this is a popular opinion shared online between YouTube comments and then later on an article that I was reading about it. Treetops is.
I like that one.
Oh, did you 100% it?
I don't remember.
I bet you didn't, because I had to look up. Did you have to look up a YouTube video for that, John?
No.
Or did you did that on your own?
Mm-hmm.
If it crashes.
I didn't look up a YouTube video for any of this.
You have more patience than I do.
Now, I did delete a probably a 30 to 45 minute recording of Treetops, though.
Okay, see, like once I lost on the first level, I think was it the Dry Canyon, I lost like 3 or 4 lives on, and was like, all right, I'm done. Treetops, I lost like 8 lives on that, and I went from, I had like 30, so it's not like I was like really in any bad position, but I went from like 30 to like 22 in the span of like 3 minutes.
I got down to
and I was like
single digits there.
See, exactly. Yeah. I was like, I'm not doing this. Because I was feeling myself get frustrated with the game, and once that point hits, I'm like, I'm not going to ruin this experience for me. But, so for anyone who's, I'm sure John, you're going to put up a clip of this, but
You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Well, you should be, because you are dirt! You make me sick, you big baby! Baby want a bottle? A big dirt bottle?
The part that just maybe not if he had to delete the whole thing because he was so frustrated. My written description of this right after I did it. Treetops. There are 2 charge areas, then 1 charge area in reverse, then you have to jump on a ramp, then jump off into a glide at the last second to make it. Once you get there, Spyro Spyro makes the comment to the dragon, you should have picked an easier area to get stuck in.
Yeah.
So, like, the game is well aware of it, but I mean, the mental strain of me trying to figure out, because I'm over here, like, jumping, like, doing double charge platforms and jumping and, like, gliding, and, like, I can't reach it. I'm like, where am I supposed to go? And I went and watched a YouTube video. It was like, the only thing I can think of is that people, and this is potentially good game design for 1998, because I have to remember that video games they're still expensive, but comparatively, video games were sparse and they're expensive in the 90s, and it's a good idea to give some people something to work towards, so that 100%, when there's internet's not maybe it's readily available. Maybe this was really fun for like kids in the 90s, in the early 2000s, to be able to try until eventually they get it. Me now, I don't have the patience to do that. But anywho,
Yeah. Anyway, so Sunny Flight, like I was talking about.
Sunny Flight. I did finish that. I think it was very hard compared to the others, but ultimately it's not like you're losing lives on it, so it wasn't something. And I was early enough in the game that it did not kill my enjoyment of me doing it over and over again. But it took like 7 times before I figured out the order you were supposed to do it in.
Right. I'm glad that you agree it was the hardest one, because that's what I thought too, which was so strange because it was the first one.
Yeah, I was a little worried, thinking like, all right, we're on World 1.
Right, yeah, that was me.
Like, it's just going to get worse from here. And it never, after that, I think I did all of them in either 1 to 2 tries.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
shocking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I did not 100% treetops.
So,
I just got there in the game to double check.
Did you guys play on controller or
Oh yeah,
keyboard and mouse? Okay,
No,
I was just
I
curious.
was not doing this on keyboard and mouse.
So
No way.
I also did controller. There's an interesting feature though, not a bug, in the flight worlds. The up and down is backwards. It's inverted.
The inverted.
And you can't change it with the
I know.
controller. You can change it with the mouse. Can't with the controller. Why they would make such a decision, I don't know. But they
See, I was thinking, like, I know this is a thing in the original game. Why can't I change it now?
Yes, and that might have been why the first one was so hard, because you were trying to learn that and everything. I never went back and did it after I learned how to do it well. But
Are you guys not inverted controls for flying sections?
no, I
Is that
don't
not how
like
you
that.
live your
No.
life?
I don't do flying
like-
sections. I don't have games that have flying.
You could tell this boy played on the Nintendo consoles his whole life.
Like Star Fox. So you get it. You get it from Star Fox.
Starfield had them inverted, I believe, by default, and I immediately went and swapped that.
Please don't mention bad games when I'm talking about good games. I'm just kidding. I played like an hour of Starfield and then it crashed every time I opened it. So maybe it is a bad game, actually. Hold on.
Anyway,
That's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, I didn't get
Yeah.
that guy in treetops. I wanted to check. I thought I did, and I was going to be like, but no, I was wrong. You guys were right.
well, now you have something to do after this video's done.
You can go 100% the game.
Yeah, exactly.
I still have it installed because I'm trying to decide if I want to play the second one, just to like see.
That's fair.
I wanted to see what you guys had to say about the first one before I continued.
I might pick it as a future backlog crew, so
That would definitely get me to do it. I'm willing.
I'll punish you all.
Um,
Go ahead.
I
Go
was going to segue. John, speaking of things that... No, this actually isn't a good segue. So, there's a glitch in this game. Did you guys find any game breaking bugs?
No.
In I think it's the second world. No, I don't know. There is a world. It's one with the wizards that like move stuff.
Oh, the third world. Okay.
Third world where the wizards are moving stuff. The wizard enemies moving platforms, and there's one level where one is opening and closing a door, but there is a
Yeah.
glitch where they will not open the door. So it's the only way to progress forward is for the enemy to close or open the door. Then you run through it and kill them, and it stays open. And I looked into it, and I found forums from like when the game came out of people saying, yeah, the issue is that you're running at too high of a frame rate.
Oh.
You have to go into your settings and limit it to 30 frames per second in order to guarantee that glitch will not happen.
Weird.
So
It was super weird, and then somebody commented from January of this year, and it was like, yeah, this is still a bug in the game, and I was like, hey, me too.
Now,
Um,
now that I thought about it, I did encounter something I'm gonna call a bug, but
okay,
I'll go over it once we get to that world.
sure.
Um, but
So-
how do you want to do this? Do we want to talk about the bosses before we move on, or
Yeah, I
Okay.
figure so. We'll just talk about our own personal things that we thought were interesting or whatnot,
Okay.
and then the bosses
got one
for each
more.
world.
I got one more for this world before we hit
Okay, go ahead.
Toasty. I did end up drowning in the little fountain in the first world. Not, I did it intentionally though, because I was like, I could have sworn you couldn't swim in this game, and so I jumped in the water in the little fountain, and it kills you.
That's
Like
hilarious.
immediately, does it not take take one of Sparks?
It
lives
well, yeah,
away?
yeah. It takes one of the lives away, but like
Like,
it
fades to black,
it fades to black and does that.
even though it's like standing room
Right?
water.
Yeah, yeah.
How do y'all feel about sparks, by the way? Is that a good health mechanic? Is it
I like it.
a little, is it too obscure?
No,
No?
I think
Okay.
that's also explained pretty early on. They're like, keep an eye on Sparks.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really dumb, and it took me a little while to like figure out the color pattern because
Oh,
it's like yellow is full health, blue is
hurt
medium
once.
health,
Yeah.
and then green is
I'm almost
low
gone.
health.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shouldn't it be like yellow, orange, red, or like, or at least chromatically go yellow, green, blue. And so I was like, how dumb can I be with this encounter? Like, do I need to be careful, or can I just charge and hope for the best?
Just watch his tail like droops. So it's like if it's like stiff, then he's
That's
good,
true.
and then like blue,
That's
and then
true.
like green.
But one thing that's great about him is that he grabs all the gems for you, and he's like, so it's kind of hard to see that when you're just running through the level. But fair enough, yeah.
So speaking of, I guess that I was thinking about the sound design. I think the sound design in this is great. And it really, it's not as like stark as it was in the original release, but part of that's probably just modern speakers and just audio design in general is more fleshed out than it was. But moving on to the related territory, the music in this, it's amazing. The original composer was involved a little bit with this. I think he ended up making like a variation of like the game's like the series music for this Reignited Trilogy re-release. Let me see. His name is Stuart Copeland, and I love that the game gave you an option actually to choose between the original music or the rearranged music, which was actually arranged by Steven Van Kov. I think they're both awesome, and I switched between them intermittently just depending on how I was feeling. But I think the music is very, very charming, and it fits very well into this colorful, actiony, cartoony world. But nothing else on the Artisan's side. The boss itself, Carrot's throwing up some air quotes on boss, and I agree with that. They're not really bosses.
I didn't realize it
Um,
was
I
the
like-
boss while I was doing it.
Yeah, I like ran up and there's like this scarecrow with a pumpkin head. I was like, oh, that's a cool enemy, and then I killed it. And then it was like, here's the end of the level, and I was like, hold up, where's the boss?
Yeah, and I think that again, this is something that later games do way better. There's actual boss fights that you can feel are boss fights, but I do think that out of the boss fights in this game, this is probably my favorite,
Yeah.
just because of the hilarity of it. Toasty looks like a scarecrow with a scythe, and you pretty much just torch him and then follow him to the next area, and then torch him and follow him to the next area and torch him. It's very, very straightforward. It's kind of hard to die on it if you're just
Well, see, I was
fast on your reaction time.
gonna say maybe just because was not good at the game yet, but I thought this was the hardest boss. Not that it was hard, but because those
The goats.
like the dog
Oh, the
enemies,
dogs.
Yes, I do
like
agree on
those
that.
were probably one of the toughest enemies in the game, and they really only use them for a couple levels. But the best way I figured out to fight him is like burn him and then sprint to the opposite direction. And I was kind of just like blindly running, and he would have like 3 dogs, and so sometimes I'd run into the other dogs, and it was pretty tough. The other bosses were not hard at all. So
Right.
What I think I had to do is I would like bait them in a
Mhm.
circle, and so like start running or like walking up toward them just enough to get their attention, and then U-turn Once they like jump, they hit the ground, flame them, and then they pop back, and you run up and flame them again. But like I died in like a conventional sense. I mean, the biggest enemy in this game is really the falls, I believe, in
Yeah.
like water.
The
But outside of that, I think I died more to these dogs than probably anything else. I think I died like
Yeah.
3 times on this level, just trying to 100% it because of the dogs in every corner. But ultimately, you know, by the end of this fight, you end up, you know, torching the Scarecrow toasty enough that you end up burning off all of the Scarecrow's clothes, and you realize it's like kids inside of a trench coat going to an R-rated movie. It's a sheep controlling the Scarecrow. It's really funny. It's something, again, it ties over from the original game, but it's still just as goofy and you know, wholesome fun as the original was for me.
It's like watching an old cartoon. It's just like really animated, and everything's colorful, and all the characters are super expressive. Like, so that gag is just a really fun thing to watch, even though you're like, all right, well, now I'm gonna spit fire on you and you'll die. It was still really, really entertaining. That was my favorite boss.
There's nothing else to the artisans. We'll move on real quick to the peacekeepers, which is a desert. It actually kind of resembles maybe like Napoleonic Wars era, like cannons and, you know, poofy hats and stuff out in the middle of the desert. Some of the Norks are shooting each other with cannons, and if you chase them into their tents and torch the tent, it'll burn up around them, and they'll be mooning you. Which is just
There's a lot of butt in this world.
there is a lot of butt. I was actually disappointed by how little butt there was compared to the original. They actually drew like butt cracks in the original, and they didn't really do that in this one. I was shocked at the
The lack of
the
detail.
censoring. Yeah, come on,
I'm scared to Google this.
show me some realistic Nork butt.
Yeah, don't type in Nork butt crack on Google, Kurt.
Try it and tell us how it looks. Give me a.
Yeah,
You
no,
see.
I wouldn't do this if I were you.
Nork.
I did
What?
point on it.
It's not
Fire.
bad, but it's just like it's not what I'm looking for, and it's not really something I want to see regardless. So we're gonna move on.
I'm a fan.
I like when you first enter the level, there's the two cannons pointing at each other, and they're just shooting a cannonball back and forth into the barrels of the cannon. Again, this game's really funny, and like all the characters are really well animated.
Mhm.
Do I need to change the thumbnail? I already made the thumbnail writer. Do I need to add that?
Nah, it's fine. I was just seeing like there's a lot of fan art around it, which is not really shocking, but still really funny to see. But yeah, so the whole theme to this world is that these are the, I guess, warrior dragons. So they all have kind of, you know, variations on different weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
As far as the different.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was gonna say when they when the Marco, the balloonist, the guy they took out from Sonic the Hedgehog and put in this game, he was like, "Are you ready to go to the Peacekeepers world?" I was like, "Oh, these first guys were artists. These next guys are gonna be hippies." I'm pretty excited. And then you rescue the first one. I'm pretty sure his name is Thor, and he has like a giant weapon. And I'm like, "Oh, never mind."
Not this kind of
They keep the
peacekeepers.
peace through violence.
Yeah. Only through violence may there be peace.
It's a good philosophy to live by in the Spyro world. Maybe not ours. So I don't, you know, man. I don't even know, man. I didn't really like this world. Between this world and Magic Crafters are my least favorite. We'll talk about it in a little bit. I think the overworld is, yeah, as far as design, one of the least interesting to look at. I don't know, just the whole desert look just doesn't really appeal to me.
He doesn't like sand.
I like sand.
appreciated how different it was from the first world.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But this is where it started to get on my nerves where like so you go to the world and each world has all the levels and like doorways or portals, but the actual world itself is also a level that has dragons to rescue and eggs and gems to collect. And it got very tedious that anytime you would enter one of the other levels and then come back to the world that everything would respawn. And you're like, which enemies did I kill, because I have to kill all the enemies to get all the gems. And
Yeah.
so I started just like completing the world sections before entering any of the levels. And it doesn't feel like that's what they want you to do, especially by the time you get to some of the later worlds where it's like actually pretty difficult to navigate the world section to get to the individual levels. It doesn't feel like they want you to loop back around at the end and go back to the start. So it's just, that was odd.
I
don't know. I don't
agree
have a
with that,
solution for
actually.
it, but it was odd.
It's really interesting because, like, I think each individual level is extremely well designed in a way that there are some oddballs, but for the most part, there's like a natural flow or progression to each level that allows you to pretty much completely get to the end and then do any sort of like high level platforming to 100% the level at the tail end of it without you having to do just tons of backtracking. There are some that require backtracking, but I think the majority are fairly intuitive. But the actual overworld areas, I think, I agree with that. It just becomes very frustrating, becomes extremely tedious by like World 3. I think especially World 3, when I'm trying to remember, I'm like, okay, now which of these guys have I killed? And like, you get down to where you have like 5 gems left. And you're just tearing all across the area trying to figure out. You pretty much just have to clean sweep, just kill everybody and get it all done in one go, or you're just going to spend way too much time backtracking back and forth between levels. So I completely get that.
Yeah.
I have written in my notes under this section that there's an ice level. I think I put that in the wrong place. Was there an ice level one?
There
Or was
No.
it
There is.
this one? Okay. I was pretty excited that there was an ice level that did not have ice physics. I think that was a good choice, especially for a 3D platformer.
I agree. I thought there were going to be ice physics in this, but I was remembering a different Spyro game. So I was also very pleasantly surprised because, I think sometimes it could be fun, but when you're like core gameplay revolves around you charging at like full speed, all I was thinking was like, man, I really don't want to have to slip off these like ledges and have to redo full sections, especially when I check and I see, oh, this level has 5 dragons in it, so this is going to be like the biggest level in the game so far. I just really was not excited, but ultimately I think it was a pretty fun level.
Yeah, it was a good level. It was gorgeous. Yeah, the platforming in Spyro is fine, except for the gliding. I had issues with the gliding, but it's not tight enough for everything to be super slippery the whole time. So I think they made the right call. I think those still very entertaining levels. And there's even in the sections where you're most likely to like fall off and die, they have or maybe I'm mixing up levels now. They have like where if you fall off, the fairies will just pick you up and bring you back. Is that level?
Not that one.
Okay.
That's in another world.
My bad.
There's not enough of those, and that'll be
Not enough of those fairies.
not enough of those fairies. Okay, so here we are. Let's go ahead and hit it. I think that. So we talked earlier about the charge mechanics, and we talked a little bit about treetops. In each world there is a charge ramp level, and the whole idea is you have to charge to be able to burst through certain walls or certain chests or make certain jumps. And that's a really fun concept because it changes up the core gameplay loop a little bit, requires you to think a little bit more creatively. But part of my frustration is to be able to 100% the game, it might require you jumping off of cliffs over and over and over and over again, and losing a lot of lives, like in treetops. Now in World 3, there's a level that actually gives you these fairies that'll pick you up and carry you away. And this is what me as a person playing this game over 20 years after its original release, I play this and I think okay, I think it's completely fair if you're going to go through the life system for you to lose lives in the core part of the level, if I get hit by an enemy or if I fall off just a normal platform. But if I'm trying to do the 100% completion portions of the level that require me to go out of my way by jumping and gliding off weird areas, I think just for quality of life, they should have had the fairies in those to keep you from literally game overing because you're just trying to 100% the game. because I think that takes a lot of the fun out of it, is having to constantly worry. I mean, and it's easy enough to get new lives, but the tedium of having to go and knock over the enemies over and over again to get the extra orbs, that's one of my criticisms. But the level that I was referencing is Wizard Peak, that actually has the little floaty fairies on it.
Sure.
But anyways, I'm not sure. Did I cut you off on the ice cavern?
No, it's very pretty. I'm glad it did not have ice physics.
All right, and then
John?
this one is got Night Flight. For Night Flight, that one wasn't that bad. It did take a little bit to find the correct path to where could have enough time to do it, and I believe this is the one that I got fairly quickly. Especially after the first one, I was a bit excited to get it so quick. So.
I think I did this one on my first try and was like shocked, because I was like, I wasn't trying to. And I think what it is like I wasn't freaking out, because I was just expecting, like, all right, it's going to take me a few times. Let me just figure out where everything's at. And then all of a sudden I had everything, and I was like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. As far as Dry Canyon, Cliff Town, and Ice Cavern, not really anything too memorable about them. Got vultures in them now, big old guys.
I think
you either flame them or hit them. Nothing too crazy.
I think that's is that Dry Canyon, I believe, that has the guys that are swinging the vultures, and I thought that was really funny watching them like grab their vultures and swing them around to get ready to hit them.
Yeah.
There's also just like I've noticed. I'm assuming when they were originally developing the game, it just made it easier, just recycling like body types for I'm not sure if they had like the core polygons underneath and just like layered textures on top of them or what, but it's pretty much big beefy dude, little scrawny fast guy, and like big beefy dude doesn't move from his position, scrawny fast guy you'll charge at you or something to that effect. And there are variations on it, but it's like mostly the way the enemies work in this.
And the little dude with armor on, you can't charge anymore, or you can't flame anymore. You have to charge him. Yeah.
I did actually like that kind of ramped up throughout the game, that they continue to like expand on that. The armor mechanics and like when you could or couldn't kill people was kind of fun. Nothing else directly to say on my end regarding Peacekeepers. Anything from either of you before we move on to the boss fight itself?
No.
They showed Dr. Shimp's whole butt. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for the boss to not have pants. It was very strange.
He just, he likes to let it hang loose. But Dr. Shimp is like, I guess, a witch doctor. I'm not really sure on that.
Yeah, it's not a great thing to see in a game that came out in 2018, but I understand it as a remake. But yeah,
he's like a kind of a caricature, and like I don't know, he's like blind as well. I'm not sure if there's like some other references here that like I just like missing entirely. But ultimately, I thought this boss fight was a little bit more of a challenge to me, the actual boss fight portion of it, than the Toasty was. I feel like Toasty, I was pretty much just flaming him, and just that was the end of it. But there's actually a few patterns here to Dr. Shimp, a couple of spins and stuff that you have to like kind of watch to be able to hit him, because he has front-facing armor. Ultimately, it's still pretty straightforward, so I don't really have anything else to say on that. If y'all are...
One thing, the tribes people, their little staffs, the top of them looks like Aku Aku from Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, that's cute.
Oh, does it?
To me, it did anyway.
Okay, I didn't know if it actually might have been.
Well, it's got like a triangle mouth and angry eyebrows on a rectangular board, and it's got green and yellow leaves behind it. So
it might be. I'd have to go look at it later to double check. But someone posted it right here, right there. He posted it right there. Okay, does it look like him? I don't know. He might not. I don't know. John might have done it. Maybe he didn't.
I'm going to point like I did, but I'm sure I won't.
So the next world we have is the Magic Crafters. So we talked a little bit about like the actual, each world has its own, I guess, intention. Every like set of dragons in each world has their own thing that they do. Do what?
Shtick.
Yeah, their own shtick. And I really think it's admirable the amount of work they put into the designs and the animation on each one of these dragons for the extremely short amount of time
Yeah,
they
it's
spend in the game.
crazy.
Yeah.
Some of them just go, "Hey," and that's it.
It
Yeah.
must cost so much money to not only design but model, rig, and animate. Because like, it's not like they pop up and they're just like standing in a neutral pose. They all have very unique mannerisms based on like their personality, and the writing does a good job of showing their personality in one or two sentences. But they're fully voice acted in this version of the game, and their lips are like synced with what they're saying. It's not like just moving, and it's not like just a text box. It's just so much work, and I mean,
Like physics too, on like some of like the fat dragons, their bellies and stuff like shake as they like move, and
yeah, it's crazy. And I'm like, was this worth it? Like, I appreciate it. I'm glad it's here, but like, oh my gosh, that's so much work. It was really impressive.
I mean, okay, so here's me being real cynical, but so I think that like this type of stuff really makes it feel like a worthwhile remake, worthwhile remaster. Where like I play it, and I'm like, I think this is actually like well worth the money because I could tell there's time, effort, and love put into this. It does not feel like a cash grab in any way to me because of these like small types of things.
Yeah.
Versus Mario
I'm not gonna defend that.
from 2020. No, I know. I'm not expecting anybody, but the bigger thing is it's like it's just hard for me to like justify most remasters, remakes, whether it be from like a movie standpoint or otherwise. I do something like this one. This is a labor of love, and it looks so good, and it feels so close to the original, but in all the right ways. Anyways, I'm done fangirling.
If I may, while we're talking about those like cutscenes when you rescue the dragons, the dragons look great, and their voice acting is fantastic. It is unfortunately very clear that despite all the effort they went into making sure that was the case, the voice actor for Spyro was nowhere near the same room as any of these dragons when those lines are being recorded.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear that the script was written, obviously with them having a conversation, but the dragon will be like, "Now watch out, Spyro, there's very dangerous enemies ahead. It's like very dark situation for dragons." And he's just like, "You got it, dude." And it's like, that's what, I don't know, that's not the best example. There's one that really stuck out to me in like the second to last world, where what he says is an appropriate response, but the tone he says it in is just it's like they just had him read a list of lines with no context of where they were putting them in the game. And so it feels like the dragons are well acted in saying something, and then it just cuts to just a random other scene of Spyro for 2 seconds before the gameplay continues.
I agree, like 100%. I feel like they probably gave them the line, and then in parentheses were like confused, like aggressive,
All right,
apathetic.
let's hurry it up. We got 100 more of those to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. In which I mean, I kind of get it, and I think ultimately, that's just kind of the way that voice acting goes these days. A lot of people record from home studios just for to cut down on travel costs and stuff. So I mean, I get it completely, but I agree with you, Kurt. It just feels kind of off-putting at some points. Also, I just feel like I'm not gonna say it's like head and shoulders difference, but a lot of the voice actors for the dragons just feels like they care so much more and are just enjoying it so much more than Spyro's voice actor.
I wonder how much
that's
that
not
is.
a fair thing, but
Sorry. I wonder how much of that is Spyro's voice actor, and how much of that... Who is Spyro's voice actor? Hold on. Spyro Reignited voice actor.
Daniel.
Who?
I don't know. Just said a random name.
I was like, what?
it's Toys for Bob himself.
It's Bob, from Toys
Tom
for Bob.
Kenny. Right.
Say it again.
I don't know anything about Tom Kenny. I'm gonna look him up while I continue to vamp.
Is that?
Did you recognize that name?
Yeah, I feel like I do.
Oh wait, he's
Isn't it SpongeBob?
He's
Yeah, it is.
okay.
I was thinking of that. Pretty sure it's SpongeBob. That's crazy.
All right.
That's so
Well,
funny.
I know he's very talented then, which is just like
yeah, he's SpongeBob, Gary, Simon Petrikov, which is from Adventure Time, apparently. Anyway, he's done some stuff, mostly SpongeBob.
Done some stuff. The
Like, so clearly, I
SpongeBob.
was a voice actor.
Yeah.
So, like, I gotta feel like it's one, the direction that he was given, and two, just the characterization of Spyro. Because in the 90s, I don't really understand why Mario came out and everybody's like, you know what, we need to compete with Mario, an edgy, not an even an edgy, just like an obnoxious, like teenager, basically.
wise.
And I don't,
Shadow the Hedgehog.
well, like Sonic,
Oh.
Sonic the Hedgehog, Bubsy, Crash Bandicoot. That's all I got off the top of my head right now, but it's just
Gex.
like cool Spot, Gex. Like, I don't know where Cool Spot came from. I don't know how I pulled that out, but it
I don't even know that one.
it was a Mountain Dew tie-in game. But he was
Of
like
course.
the red dot from the Mountain Dew logo at the time, but he had like cool sneakers on and like a and sunglass. Like, I don't know, but like I think it's just the characterization. Like, they invented these characters in the 90s, and some games have adapted them. So Crash has gone from being like radical, crazy, to just being like kind of silly and zany. And he has other characters in his newer games like Coco, who are a little more of the straight woman to kind of balance it out. For lack of a better word, the straight man, but it's a girl. Anyway, John, I see you glaring at me.
I'm just confused where you're going with this.
Well, what I'm trying to say is Spyro still feels very much like a character from the 90s. And I feel like that doesn't sit well. Like, all these other characters have evolved. Even Sonic, as much as he still is a relic of the 90s, is like evolved to fit modern audiences. Like, look at the movies, they're hugely successful. Still very much the same character it originally was. This just I'm monologuing now, I apologize.
No, you're good.
It just Spyro and his original lines in the game and the way that they had him read them faithful to the original game just makes it feel like a product of that time and not a product of 2018 where we have all this masterful voice acting like from the other Dragons. But you got to think, this is the same year that God of War came out, the 2018 version. This is the same year that Spider-Man 2018 came out. Like, there's so much good voice acting at this point in gaming. So it just feels like a relic of the 90s, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make in a very long-winded way.
No, I mean, I think all that's very fair, and I mean, that's kind of the point of this, is for us to talk about these things. This is our video
Right.
game book club. I mean, there's
Mhm.
when else are we going to sit and talk about Spyro for 3 hours? So we should get it all out. So, I mean, I think all that's very fair, and I think that part of it, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head that, you know, part of it's just like a 90s holdover. But I think that part of it also helps for me having the context of the original game. The original Dragons were not this fleshed out. I mean,
Yeah.
Spyro was like by far the most interesting dragon. And so, you know, if you like flip the script and go play the original game, you'd probably be watching like, you know, these polygon dragons who are like, Spyro, you have to jump at the height of your glide. And then he disappears. And then the other, you know, dragon
Is there
named
voice
Thor,
acting in the original
it
game?
was just, yeah, there was.
Oh, that's crazy.
Hey, Spyro! Press the jump button twice to glide. And don't be afraid.
Afraid? Of what?
Falling from high mountain peaks? Plummeting into prehistoric glaciers?
That.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But the original is like, I mean, it's fairly stiff by comparison, and they're not costumed or anything, you know.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now. They're just like basically palette swaps, and they're all
Yeah.
standing like this.
Yeah.
And so their animations either put their arms down or they'll put like one arm up, but they're just like out.
It's basically a T-pose, yeah.
And so, like, with that in mind, I think that obviously they're not going to just change up like Spyro's lines. They're not going to, like, you know, change up. They gave him like facial animations to make him a little more emotive and stuff. But I think that's maybe the excuse you could give, is that really it feels off because Spyro is what Spyro was, but the other dragons have so much more character now because they can. They're not as restricted by budget maybe as they would have been back when, and so each dragon can have its own individual quirks and like voice actors who are maybe more dynamic. There's even just small things like the old compact disc not having as much storage space, as today. So all that type of stuff could maybe play into it, but I do completely agree with that as a criticism.
Right. And so that brings us back to Magic Crafters. And
but my whole point with this
Tell us about the flight.
was but before we go like way into that, I would say the only reason why I brought this up is because I feel like that even though all the character designs are extremely well done, I feel like Magic Crafters and Dreamweavers felt like cut from the same cloth, like they couldn't distinguish them enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if either of y'all felt like that, but I feel like I was back at every world subsequently feels like very different from the last until you get to Dreamweavers, and it just feels like a rehashing Magic Crafters.
Yeah, it's like it's artists, it's warriors, it's magic people, it's Louisiana people, it's magic people again. Yeah, I totally get that. And then hold on, I'm sorry, I'm jumping.
You're good.
And then we get to the last world, and it's the same people you've already rescued.
Yeah, my thought was that Nasty Nork is like
they went to go
frozen
fight
them
him
again.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
My thought was they didn't make 10 more dragons. Like they put in all this work and all this effort, and they didn't, like in the original game, sure, but like I don't know.
That could be true. I do think that in the original game they actually reused them though, so it's like it's in line with that.
Sure.
But the explanation
might have been a
Who knows?
space saving thing as well for PlayStation.
That's fair. Your explanation would make sense to me of like they decided to go fight him, except like I feel like 30% of the dragons you free are like, thanks Spyro, good luck saving everybody else, and they just peace out. And that's it's like, wait, hold on. I'm like 8. Is that how old Spyro's supposed to be? He breathes like an 8-year-old to me.
maybe breathes like an 8-year-old. He's like this is through his mouth.
Reads. I looked up Spyro age, and Google just said 26 years.
Oh yeah,
I'm like, no, that's not what I meant.
that tracks.
He's roughly 13 to 15 years old.
That's a dragon.
Okay.
That makes sense. That fits.
All right, yeah. So Magic Crafters.
Magic Crafters,
So-
yeah. So it's like a snowy mountainous world. So yeah, hit us with it, John.
Anyway, I was gonna say I kind of liked Magic Crafters' design the most out of each of the different worlds, just because I love the mountains and the snow and the green and the yellow colors mixed together to make the worlds. So this was my favorite design choice for the worlds. Definitely beats out sand. So anyway, to talk about the flight really quickly, this is the one that I actually finished first try. I was so excited. I'd already went into it going like, all right, I'm going to go plan out my route and then I'll be good, and then I got it first try. I was like, what is going on? Am I getting good at this?
Congratulations.
No, but I did good that time.
I think that
it's all being cut by Discord.
do what?
You don't want that sound, do you? It's like you don't want to hear clapping right now.
One, I won't hear it. For two, they can barely see your hands, so it just looks like you're doing nothing. There you go.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so I didn't really have too many issues with this flying level either. Honestly, I don't even remember too much about it. It was just such like a kind of forgettable thing. This is the world where I started to lose a little bit of steam. It's being candid. It kind of picks back up with the next world, but for me, nothing in this really just stood out particularly. I don't know. What did y'all think about this world overall? I know, John, you said you liked it from an aesthetic point of view. Did you enjoy it, like gameplay, actual level design?
The wizards were all right. Yeah, that's about it.
That's about it.
My notes for this game: door won't open, it's glitched.
Oh.
Switching from dashing to gliding feels bad. In fact, gliding itself feels bad. I stopped caring about completing levels at Wizard Peak. These bosses are a joke, huh?
All right.
So I didn't have a great time in this world, apparently. I did have a note about Spyro. If you leave him just like sitting there, he does like cat things. And I love that. That's adorable. He like cleans himself and scratches his ears, and it's really cute. So it was a great world because of that, I think.
That's actually something that, for modern games, I kind of miss, like idle animations.
Mhm.
Maybe it's something that's kind of coming back in, but like idle animations were a huge thing in like the 90s and 2000s. And it was always fun watching, the effort that developers would put in to make the character, I guess, look like they're either annoyed or bored that you're like stepping away from the game for a little bit.
I feel like that's coming back a little bit because, like, I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now. No spoilers, obviously, but there's good idle animations in that. But it's weird. They'll trigger during dialogue sometimes. So sometimes the character will be talking to you, and he'll just be like,
Super disinterested.
yeah, like literally like kicking the dirt, like at his feet. Anyway, I'm
I
sorry.
appreciate that. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm
Yeah.
boring you.
Like, the guy's like, "You've changed my life," and he's like,
Yeah.
I was like, all right. But Spyro, great
Yeah,
animation.
yeah, Crystal Flight. Yeah.
Crystal Flight.
Yeah,
I think that's the one that I got the closest to completing, but I did it like 6 times, and there were things where you had to like swoop really close to the water and then swoop back up,
You kept it in the water,
and I
didn't
kept failing those. I kept falling, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not even going to try the rest of these flight levels, and I did not.
It probably would have been easier if you inverted your y-axis.
No, it was a
No.
depth perception thing.
you?
So I will say that with the flight levels, one thing that actually really, I guess, helped me was realizing that you fly faster if you're closer to the ground. And so I would intentionally like cut closer to the ground. Spyro goes exponentially faster the lower he flies. It seems kind of counterintuitive. You think like he'd be faster.
It's not like a swooping effect.
No, so if you fly like right above the ground, you go extremely fast, and then as you if you go up and then stop, you'll like go a little bit slower up and stop. And I thought I was imagining it. I looked it up, and it is an actual gameplay design choice. So doing that, you do have to get very comfortable with being like right above the top of the water, or potentially hitting the ground. But ultimately, that ends up saving a lot of time if you get comfortable doing, the swooping and stuff. But as far as this world goes, like I said, ultimately, I don't have just a whole bunch to say about it.
Right.
There's the Wizard Peak level, which is like where the supercharges are. Which that was like the first one. I was like, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I think there's some like spiders in that. They're like
in a cave.
one of the first enemies you could not kill at all until you use like the charge attack. That was really cool, but overall that's probably the high point for me. The fairies could pick you up and carry you away from platforms if you fell off, which was a lifesaver literally, because it prevented me from throwing a controller, trying to figure out how to get over to the long distances. But John, do you have something on this?
No, I covered pretty well. Magic Crafters.
Okay.
Beastmaker's World. Beastmaker's World.
So we're gonna go back in time. Is that what you want to do, Kurt?
Beastmaker's World.
No, we're going to Blowhard now.
So yeah,
Boss.
Blowhard's the boss. John, do you want to talk about him?
Yeah. Let me click this page real quick to remind me which one that is, and
That's how memorable he was.
You had to chase for 3 seconds, and then that killed it.
all right. This is a druid. Is that right? No.
Kind of. I guess so. There's other druids in the level, so
Okay, that's close
maybe.
enough.
Like a tornado thingy.
Oh yeah. Okay. It was
It's
a
a technical
tornado.
term for tornado thingies.
Nothing too crazy on this one. I don't remember anything about this one. So yeah, Blowhard. There you go.
That's how I feel about pretty much this entire world. It's just like, it was the midpoint of the game. So moving on from that to an actual good part of the game, Beastmakers is the next world, which is actually, I think, maybe my favorite world in the game. I know that there's a lot of like contention around this because it is
The Louisiana of Spyro.
Yeah, and I don't like Louisiana in real life, let alone in video games. But I don't know. I do think so. A lot of the frustration around this because it's a difficult world comparatively, and I do think that there are a lot of kind of not really difficult enemies because they all pretty much die in one hit, but a couple of sections which require you to like be fast in your reaction times and stuff to keep from dying. There's also treetops, which is just extremely frustrating on the charge ramps and stuff. But overall, I really like the level design of this world. And I really like the these are probably my favorite designed dragons in the game.
Mm-hmm.
They all spoke with kind of, I guess, what popular media would consider to be Louisiana accents. Yeah. Come on, Spyro, let's get over here and cook us some sheep up. Come on, man. Let's just fly across here, Spyro. It's
will you do that for 10 more minutes, please, actually?
I can do the rest of the video like this.
I'd rather you did.
But it's kind of like Foghorn Leghorn.
This level is the exact same vibes as that swamp level from Sly Cooper that we did back when. And I'm pretty sure the boss of that level was like a large alligator woman who was very similarly designed to these dragons, who spoke with the exact same like accent and cadence of voice.
It reminded me of the swamp in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah,
especially the dragons.
The dragons wearing like leaves for hats and stuff. I definitely got that vibe as well. I also this one felt a little offensive as a Southerner because like every one of them were fat. I'm pretty sure. Like I don't know if there's a single dragon that was like. There might have been one that was skinny, but I was like, this is kind of disproportionate here. Like the rest of the worlds would have like I don't even think there's a buff dragon. Like every world had a buff dragon except for like this one.
I had that same thought, but as a Southerner, I don't know that I have the right to be offended. So I just was like, "Hey, that's funny."
Let me just drink my sweet tea.
Well, I'm pulling up like an actual like list of the dragons now to do a quick scroll through just to see if I'm wrong about this.
A quick scroll through of 100 dragons. Go ahead.
No, there is actually
just the Louisiana ones. There's
actually a buff one. His name is Bubba, so that's kind of fitting. So I'll leave it alone.
We'll make it buff, but we'll call him Bubba.
There's actually some like throughout this entire game some really cool level design, but there's like a soft shell turtle dragon. He has like the actual like long and skinny nose, and I thought that was really really cool. He has like a snail hat and everything. There's a lot of cool stuff throughout the game, but that was one of those details where like, all right, this is awesome. If nothing else, because of the dragon designs. But like we said, this world is all built around like swamp theme. I don't really have any level in particular that stands out from one that I particularly enjoyed. That's the caveat right there. I really did enjoy actually the boss fight, as simple as it was. I think it was more the level design itself. There's probably some justified frustration in the boss fight area because there's to 100% the level you have to like drop down on a platform that you can't really see and then like jump through a hole in a gate to be able to get to like the actual last few gems, and that's kind of stupid that I guess again you're gonna go back to the beginning. They tell you like use the action or whatever button to be able to look around, like it zooms in a little bit, but it's not really that helpful because you can use it at like vantage points around the map and look around, but a lot of things are just completely blocked off by like verticality or just around corners, and you pretty much just have to commit. And I actually found that on accident. I was charging an enemy and ran off the side and was like, okay, I guess I'm going to restart from the beginning. And I hit the platform underneath and was like, okay, we good. Any thoughts about this world from either of you?
Yeah, I have thoughts about the wild flight. So I always did the flights last up to this point, and so it was a good thing to do last because this is the swampy area of the map, but for some reason the wild flight is a steampunk castle type area with poison water at the bottom, and it's just a good segue to let you know that you need to fly on out of the bayou. So
gotta get out of there. Gotta get out of the bayou.
This is my favorite world, I think. I think I'm just a sucker for swamps and like platformers because favorite level in Banjo-Kazooie is the swamp level. Favorite level in Sly Cooper was the swamp level. I just think it's just something about the colors and the atmosphere, and it's like kind of creepy, but also usually pretty silly. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed this one. There's a lot of variety in the world, in the levels in the world. Even though some of them, like the treetops, were kind of tedious, I enjoyed that it was very unique.
No, I agree overall. Like I said, this is my favorite world. It's relatively like, yeah, all of them are like relatively short, and so there's like not enough time, I think, to like really dive into the different ideas. It's not like something like Sly Cooper, I think, does a really, really good job of fleshing out like the overworld and stuff in a way that makes everything feel extremely cohesive. And I don't know if like any of these worlds are really long enough to do that. I'm not really going to fault it for that. But overall, though, like I said, I think this is my favorite for pretty much the same reason you said. As far as the boss itself, I talked about that a little bit. I think this might be my favorite boss outside of Toasty. And this is Metalhead. And the entire way you defeat Metalhead is just by charging like electrical pylons. I'm not really sure what to call them, and destroying them.
Yeah.
But you have to wait till they're green. This might actually be the easiest boss fight in the game.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was the first part of the boss fight. Whenever he ran away, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I thought it was just unlocking a new part of the area. I didn't even realize it was the actual fight.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was in the boss level at all. I tried to save the boss to last. I do the flight first and the
Right.
boss last,
Oh,
but I jumped into the level and then beat it, and I was like, wait, did I just beat the boss? And then I jumped out of the level. I was like, oh no, I did. Whoops. Oh well. But it
usually
kind of
save
goes
the
to your
boss
point,
for
Garrett.
last, too.
They're not really bosses. I mean, they're just like normal levels with like a one extra step at the end instead of just a normal collecting.
This was like one of the better bosses. At least it was, because I feel like platformer bosses are best when there's some kind of puzzle, and this was the closest thing to a puzzle. I mean, I think the
There's
dragon
more
right when
intention,
you fight
maybe.
it. Do what?
Like there's like maybe more intention, you could argue.
Yeah, it's not just like a guy that runs and you have to catch up to him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say finding the last few gems in this level was more of a puzzle than the boss, though.
Yes. Okay, so like the last few gems, I'm assuming, was that like the same issue, like where you had the hole in the gate
hole
that
in
you
the
had
gate
to jump
you had to
through,
fly through, yeah.
and then you have to go. So I didn't find this. It took me like 4 times of like going around the map and then like dying. This was almost a level where I was like, I'm not going to 100% it. But I looked and I was at like 79% completion. I was like, I gotta finish it. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't see on like the right side after you fall down and you turn back around the right side. There's like the spinny, like floaty that take you back. I didn't realize that was there. I just thought you had to kill yourself, and I was like, why? Like, why do you have to kill? This is never a thing at any other point in the game that you have to kill yourself to move on. And so I killed myself and then just never went back to that. And then I tried it, like that was the last thing I did at the very end, like make sure I didn't forget something back there. And then I saw the floaty and I was like, oh okay,
I'm just dumb.
yeah. So anyways, that's all I have on Beastmakers.
Yep.
You guys are cool with it? Move on to Dreamweavers. Dreamweavers starts off with a couple of like floating islands, I guess. The whole concept is that you're kind of up in the clouds. There are 2 different types of enemies here, and it kind of wraps around like a fairy tale theme, I guess, is the idea. Some of these like enemies, their abilities where they can shoot other enemies and make them big or small, which changes, the whether or not you can attack them or kill them or not. This is like one of those times where I think you 100% need to just go ahead, and if you're trying to completely 100% an overworld, you have to do it here because it is so tedious, the backtracking back and forth, because of the enemies that will literally block off areas if you don't kill them while they're small. I'm assuming you'll both feel similarly about that. As far as this world goes, I'm not gonna say I dislike this world, but there are just some weird things to me in it. Like there's a couple of like jesters almost, like the little time
I think that's what
wizard
they're called.
dudes.
Yeah.
Are they jesters? They just, to me, they do not make sense. Their entire existence, there are not like any enemies that I can think of that are, immune to damage. And then these guys show up and
Well, those are the
there's-
guys that are switching the enemies back and forth. And the point, they're invulnerable,
Yeah.
so you can't soft lock yourself, is my perspective.
Yeah, and what I get that, but my thing is like I just didn't really like their character design. And so like
That's
it
okay.
started there, and then from there it was just like there's been no enemies like them,
Sure.
and so they're introduced at the very tail end of the game, and like they just don't do a lot on their own. So I guess the idea is they reuse the same like enemy model for various purposes. So some of them made other enemies smaller or bigger. Some of them actually controlled platforms moving up and down or side to side.
Mhm.
And so I guess that was like part of the idea was that like you don't want to, like you said, if you make them completely vulnerable, you kill them and then the platforms just lock themselves into place. But the other side of it is, couldn't you just kill them and then the platforms just move back and forth indefinitely, And it doesn't really hurt anything. It's just, again, it was just like a weird choice there at the end of the game to be like, oh, these enemies are actually, invincible.
It is definitely odd. I did spend quite a bit of time like trying everything to kill them the first time.
Hmm. This is actually something semi-related, talking about people who can't be killed. The little fairies that sit over, they do auto saves for you on the dragon pedestals.
Checkpoints.
I like flamed one of them intentionally because I was curious, and she just did like a little spin. It was like hee hee hee, and you could like, I was like, all right, well, let me see what happens. I would do this, and so like I backed up and charged and jumped and like headbutted her, and same thing happens. So if you're curious,
That's cute that they accounted for that.
yeah, I don't know if that was something in the original game or not, but maybe I'm just a sociopath now because as a child I never would have done that, but as an adult I'm like, oh,
Sure you would have.
protect the fairy.
It's
I
the same,
did other messed up things in video games as children.
it's the same part of your brain that makes you take the baby penguin in Mario 64 and drop it off a cliff.
I did that as a child.
See, you would have roasted them if you had the thought.
Yeah, I just didn't play the game enough, probably. So as far as this world goes, I know John's chomping at the bit. So go ahead and tell us about the flying level in this.
What makes you think I was going to jump to that? I had something else to talk about.
I can let Kurt do it if you want.
No, I'm going to do that after I talk about the other thing I had to say.
Okay.
This is where I figured out an area where you can actually get stuck. In Haunted Towers, this is the area with the reanimated armors that you have to destroy. You have to run around the level and find the fairy that gives you ultra fire breathing attacks. And you have a time limit. You have a time limit to burn these reanimated corpses and the mage that causing them to appear. And so whenever you get done with the level, there's a side area that you have to speed run across and jump really quickly. But when you get through to that area, you have to get up this staircase full of reanimated armors really fast. And if you do it fast enough, you can get past the one that blocks your way and moves in front of you. And you can take out the wizard at the back and take out the corpses and stuff so you can get to the fairy. But if you run just right, you can try to run past the one that tries to block your way. The same time he goes to block your way, and he'll clip you and stick you into the wall. With him blocking you here and the wall over here, you can't move, and you just have to let him hit you until you die, and then you have to go run all the way back and try to get through there before he gets in the way. So, and I just timed it perfectly to do that.
I don't know if. So for me, that was maybe. I was already like coming off treetops, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can do that again. And then here comes this level again with like the same charge ramps.
Yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating for me because it just is one of those areas that, like, some of the charge ramps early on, you can kind of tell, like, okay, this is the intention. I can see it in the distance. Let me see if I can do it. This one, you just had to kind of assume you're going to be jumping the right direction around a corner. And that, to me, is very frustrating. It took a long time for me to get it figured out. But you finally get through that frustration, unlock this dragon, and this dragon is like, Spyro, you've mastered the charge. And you're like, yeah, I know. Thanks. Appreciate it. And then and then you have the whole staircase thing.
Yeah.
And my blood pressure was already just up. And then the staircase, if you're not fast enough, you're just soft locked out of the staircase.
Well,
and
actually you're not.
How do you restart it?
You just
it's too
go
late
down,
now. But...
You just go out the building, go down to where you would have landed after the charge, and just take the magic elevator up, and it
really
resets the room.
Okay. Well, I just kept on killing myself because I didn't have the patience to. Yeah. I thought I was going to have to like go back out of the area entirely because I walked out of the room, and I walked out of the next room after that and came back, and they were still there, and I was like.
You just had to jump off the landing and then fly it back up. Yeah.
Okay, I just like it was honestly maybe faster what I was doing. I would just like charge straight out and then it would respawn me like immediately back at the pedestal.
Mm-hmm. You guys spent too much time in this level. That's what I'm learning.
I did spend. Yeah. This is the second longest time I spent in a level. This one.
How long did you spend on this? Like 45 minutes, 30 minutes?
30 something minutes, yeah. And that's because I was looking for the hat to burn. And that was awful.
Wait, okay. I didn't want to go into this right now. So did you do the skill points?
Yeah. I did.
Did you? Oh my god. No, did you do all of them?
I did them all, yeah.
Dude,
what is the skill point? Hold on. What are you talking about?
So if you open your pause menu while you're playing the game,
no, okay,
you can see that there's a skill point menu where if you do them all, you unlock an additional art gallery for the game.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, congratulations to you. When you say skill point, I think like earn new skills, and I was like, oh, all my complaints are moot because there was a skill tree that I didn't know about.
It's just like Sly Cooper.
That was Sly Cooper. Yeah.
No. They called it that, but there's no skills. It's just for the art gallery.
It takes skill to get them. That's what it is.
Well, it takes patience. Well, some skill. You had to do
patience.
Well, you had to do the boss without taking any damage from the boss, so some skill. But other ones were find this random thing we threw at a level and burn it.
Okay, so
any of those.
You probably did like accidentally because that's how I found like 3 or 4 was by doing things I didn't mean to, and it was like skill point acquired. I'm like, what? And it pops up at the bottom. And that's how I was like clicked and looked through the menu because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, what? This is gonna give me like super flame? Like, what is?
So that's what I was waiting for.
I just realized something. One of us 100% completed the game. The other one pretended to 100% complete the game.
Actually, I hit 120% according to the in-game menu.
Yeah, how was that art gallery at the end?
I don't need no stinking art gallery.
John, put up the footage of the art gallery.
Right here.
Show the people what Ryder's missing.
This picture.
Yeah, I mean, so I thought about that for a second, and then I was like halfway through the game, and I was looking at the stuff, and I was like, I'm not doing this. Like I finished what would have been the core game from 1998, and no more. But anywho,
Hold
moving
on.
on.
That brings me to the Icy Flight, which
you
I decided to go out of order, and I ended up doing that one right after I did Wild Flight
Mhm.
because, I
You're
did
on a roll.
Metalhead in between. But yeah, I was like, well, Wild Flight was just so easy, surprisingly. So I went and did Icy Flight. I think I got it the second time, and I was very excited because, apparently that was the last one. So knocked that out nice and quick.
It was good to have those out of the way. They
Right,
were.
yeah.
I didn't really enjoy them, honestly. I mean, the
I
first
enjoyed
one was
beating
like
them.
you enjoyed beating them. I enjoyed them being done.
Right, yeah, that's
That
what
was
I meant.
probably like
The satisfaction of beating it, yeah.
it wasn't the satisfaction. It was the comfort of knowing I don't have to do it again.
So there's-
I didn't enjoy those that much.
So there's three kinds of people on this call. There's John, who enjoys overcoming a challenge. There's me, who sees a challenge, says that's not worth it, and just moves on, and it's fine with life. And there's Ryder, who sees a challenge, sees that it's not worth it, but forces his way through it regardless.
Yes, but I did it, baby. So, as far as like this world goes, I talked a little bit earlier about how I think there's like a lot of almost like overlap as far as like the design of the dragons themselves goes. The overworld itself didn't feel super interesting to me, and I think the only level that really kind of drove home to me the what they were trying to do was Lofty Castle, which was just a complete. I thought that was a lot of fun there at the end of the game. It was a complete change up of like the way the game worked up until that point, with like the floating enemies and stuff, and like being able to fly over and like flame them. I thought that was really fun to have the big stationary enemies like floating off of the platform. As simple as that was, but that kind of got the whole fairy tale vibe down for me more than any other part of this world did for me. Anything that really stands out to y'all about this world?
I was pushing at this point, so I don't even have a note on the boss fight of this world.
So the boss for this world is Jacques.
Jack.
Oh yeah,
and
that guy.
This was a very uneventful boss. I mean, he just like I guess he's a jester, but with like the Green Goblin face, and his body was on a spring. I don't know. It's just kind of weird for me, and none of this really felt cohesive to me, because there's some like King K. Rool type enemies in this, some Kremlings. I don't really understand like where these guys fit into the rest of it. They're not like Norks. We haven't really seen any other enemies like them. I don't know. Like I said, it just didn't really feel very cohesive to me, which is not a mark against the Reignited trilogy as much as maybe just the original game. It's also just lava everywhere. I don't really get it, but overall, uneventful boss fight.
For the world, there's got to be lava everywhere. That's how platformers work.
You're right. And we'll talk about this later. Actually, let's continue going on this world. I want to have like a full overview at the end, so I don't really want to drag ourselves off again. So I don't really have anything else on that. So if y'all are ready, so Nasty's world is the final world in the game. I did actually like the way this was set up.
What's the name of it?
Ganasty's world.
No. Oh wait, yeah, you're right. Hold on. I thought it was the Nork Nexus.
That's the center
Or is that the first level?
area, I think. That's like the center platform, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, that's the name of the world.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
On the wiki that I have pulled up, it's got both of them there with a slash, so either one.
Who knows? We gotta ask Bob. No, you don't know.
I know who to ask. The comment section, let us know after you've liked and subscribed.
Yeah.
I don't know how
all three of you guys
expect you to do that. Sorry, go on, Ryder.
So Nasty's Wexus. World Exus. Norald. Nasty's Norald.
Okay, I'm with you now.
So I like the concept of the the dragon mouths that are shut, and they only open as you finish each level in sequence. I didn't remember this really when I played the game originally when I was a kid, but the boss fights, except for the very first one, Toasty, none of them are locked behind like a dragon's mouth.
Yeah,
And
And
the
I really
first
wish that
one
they'd
was-
done something like that, because otherwise you can do them in pretty much like any order without ever knowing that you're hitting a boss world. And I think that's a fun way to kind of like, I think that if they would have done that for every world, have like the dragon's mouth that opens after you get a certain amount of dragons, or after you just get up to it, whatever, that would be a fun way to indicate like, hey, you're stepping into a boss level. And then you could tie it all together with the nexus here, where there's the dragon mouths again to show that you're in a exclusively boss world type thing. I
Ryder,
don't
do you know what game does that I think you would love?
No.
Wario World for the
I
Nintendo
knew you
game.
were gonna say
That-
that.
That game does it, and I think you might like it a lot.
I didn't even play that, and I knew you were gonna
What?
say that.
Watch our backlog crew on this. So
You'll-
yeah,
you'll
I was
watch
gonna
my
say
8-minute
this.
rant.
No, never mind. I'm gonna save it for the end. Nork Nexus.
So as far as the actual, this world goes, it's pretty straightforward. There's actually less levels on this that are mandatory, I guess, or
There's
accessible.
only two, right? There's only two, and then the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Instead of
correct.
3 or 4.
Yeah, and so
No flight.
Nasty's Cove, and then Twilight Harbor. And Nasty's Cove, or Nork Cove rather, kind of felt
Mhm.
like a kind of like Donkey Kong, I guess. The
Yeah,
enemies
except for
throwing
the
barrels and
barrels.
stuff.
Whichever one had the
Yeah, yeah.
barrels, I really liked that level because I was like, hey, look, they're iterating on these concepts.
Well, they
Mhm.
both did. Yeah, they both had.
They
the
both had
barrels.
them. Okay, I really like these levels because I got to experiment. I didn't just immediately. My solution to every problem wasn't either blow fire or hit it with my head. I had to because with almost every enemy in the game, they're either not wearing armor, so you blow fire, or they are wearing armor, so you hit them.
Mhm.
But these barrels, it's like, okay, if I hit the metal barrel, then it hits. Cool, that tracks. Okay, they're throwing these TNT barrels. They're not breaking. Let me hit those. Doesn't work. It's like, let me use my fire to blow them up. Most of the time doesn't work to your benefit, so you just got to dodge those completely. And you can launch barrels at enemies. You can blow up the ones that are targeting you. It seemed more dynamic, I guess is the best word for it. I really enjoyed these levels.
No, I agree. I think these are actually really fun. I think that there's more of a skill jump as well in these compared to some of the other just normal levels. There were a couple of times that I actually died from, I believe in, was it Twilight Harbor? Yeah, where I was shot off platforms by the little
Mhm.
minigun Norks, because it's one of those things where if you get like the wrong angle, almost hanging off a bridge, and you get shot, it'll knock you right off.
Mhm.
So it's the type of stuff that like earlier, you didn't really have to. There's some levels you can just run through without ever taking damage. This did require a bit more thought. Actually, there's one part where there is a barrel coming out of the ground as like barrel distributor. I don't really know what to call it.
Yeah.
While another enemy was throwing a barrel at that coming out of the ground, and I was trying to charge, and I somehow got caught like in the perfect little loop to where I held the charge button the entire time and never let off of it, and I was charging into the barrel as the oncoming barrel was hitting the spawn barrel, and it was blowing up and killing me. And I was like the perfect distance that I did that 3 times in a row in like 2.5 seconds, and I lost a life doing that. And it happened so fast, I didn't even like realize I was killing myself until it was over. But I had a lot of fun with both of these, especially the barrel level. I think was maybe my favorite level in the game.
Might be.
Moving on from that, neither of y'all have anything. Also something we talked about a little bit earlier, but there's like the repeating dragons, different theories on that. I kind of liked it because it felt like they were like your mentors coming back and teaching you how to, this is how you need to handle Nasty Nork. Congrats on getting this far. As far as an
Mhm,
actual explanation, I don't know if anything really makes sense, but moving on to Nasty Nork himself as
Nasty
the
Gnork.
boss. The entire, I guess, gameplay loop of this is just takes all of the. We haven't really talked about them at all, but there's egg thieves in the game.
Nah, nah, nah,
And you're
nah.
yeah, and that's all there is to it. Nan 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 nan. You just chase them, and then some of them you headbutt, some of them you flame, and you get the egg back. Some of them carry keys or like gems and like odd worlds, but in this one specifically, there's two different egg thieves that are carrying keys. You steal one key after killing one of the thieves. It unlocks a door where there's another egg thief with a key.
Another
Take
one.
that key, and then it takes you to the actual section with Nasty Nork. And it's really interesting to me that like that's how they decided to finish off the
Yeah.
game, was with a boss fight where you just chase the final boss. I didn't
Yeah.
dislike it.
I did. I
Did you? Okay.
genuinely think it's a horrible boss fight. Like all the other ones were like barely boss fights, but none of them were just like bad. Period. They're bad boss fights, but they weren't just bad. This was just bad because I don't know. Maybe I just am never grasped some simple mechanic of how to chase down these egg guys, but you sprint, and when you sprint or when you dash, charge, whatever they call it, the camera angle changes. So usually it's kind of like, open and you can see a lot around you. As soon as you hit the charge button, it zooms in a little bit and goes a little bit flatter, which makes it much harder to see what's around you. And so I always found that frustrating in anything that made you use charge. And then for the egg thieves, they're very fast. And sometimes I was just brute force. I could just catch up to them if I chased them long enough. Sometimes I would get lucky and catch them on like a sharp corner. But there's also a delay on when you can charge and when you can use fire breath. And at the very beginning of the game, I wasn't able to like catch any of them just with charge, so I would resort to fire breath. And so you would sprint, get like a little bit close, and then like stop completely, and then wait 0.3 seconds, and then you can use your fire breath. And I don't know, it was just always frustrating. And I did every single one of them that I found in the game because that's just the kind of person I am. And so I saw these in this level, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I finally got both of the keys, and I'm like, finally gonna go fight. And it was the exact same thing. And I died, and it respawned me at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, there's two keys. I'm not going to waste time chasing the second key. I'm going to get this guy, and then I'm going to go to Nasty Nork because there's a lock right there. Nope, it's not the right key.
Yeah.
So you got to chase both of them. And I died like 4 or 5 times, and so I had to chase these guys. I just talk about how much you loved the final boss, John.
So-
Let the people know how great this game is. But I was like, man, what? This whole world has been so nice, but this boss fight is just bad.
So I didn't have any issues with the guys with the eggs because I found a shortcut that worked for me on the first one. So consistently, the second loop, I was able to hit him.
Yeah.
And catch up. The second guy, I didn't even bother with the portion where there was cliffs. I just waited until you're in the tunnel, and then I was hitting him in there. If I didn't get him in the tunnel, I just walked him back, and I did the tunnel portion again. So I didn't have to deal with the cliffs. However, once I got to the 2 keys and I got the boss door unlocked, so you can actually hit him with that first breath of fire, I chased him around twice, and I breathed fire on him. He goes into the lava tube area with the platforms that slowly go under the wall. I didn't realize they were slowly going into the wall until after the fact, and then I started moving forward, and then I had to do it all again. And I wasn't as lucky the second time, so I had to do it a third time, getting all the keys. But after that, I didn't have any trouble. I'm pretty sure once you get past that section where the platforms are closing, You just breathe on him once and the game is over.
Yep.
So I was literally one platform away from beating the game the first time I did it, but because I stood there for a minute to see what he was gonna do, before I realized the platforms were moving, I hit my head on the side of one of the platforms as it was closing, and then the platform went away and I died. So, but yeah, that's how it went for me.
I beat him on my second time doing it, and so even though I didn't find this very frustrating because I did it on my second try, I do think because I watched Larkin do this like 30 times when she was like just beginning to get into video games. She had played Spyro when she was a kid as well. And so that was like her goal, was like, I want to beat Spyro again. And she always had trouble with the egg thieves. And then for the final boss fight to be just that, but ramped up. And I think that like one of the worst design choices is for you to have to restart entirely.
Yep.
And I think there is a way in game that they could have circumvented it by giving you the last dragon to unlock in the game after you finish the 2 egg thieves. That way it splits you could split the boss fight in half, and it gives you like an actual legitimate way to have an autosave in the middle so that you're not having to redo everything over and over and over again. Because I did not remember that was a thing. And so I the first time I got both of the egg thieves really quickly, I went to the boss fight with Nasty Nork, and I knew it was going to be a chase fight. And so I took my time and I walked the course the first time, just to make sure that I didn't, run off when it was actually time to chase him. I had some ideas. So then I started chasing him, and I accidentally hit the jump button at one point, and it just went straight off the platform, and was like, and so it restarted, and I was like, well, thankfully I only have to do the net. Okay, and at that point, I was like, this is bad. And again, for like 1998, the fact that the game is only as long as it is, maybe there's some justification about trying to make the boss fight feel like more of a challenge. I don't know, but I agree with all that. I think it's very frustrating.
It's probably fine for 1998. But
that's
not when the version we played came out.
So, it feels
30
dated.
years later. 2018.
Yeah. So ultimately, I don't think it was a bad boss fight, but I do think that is the worst part of that boss fight. Ultimately, I did enjoy it, but again, I didn't have the same frustration. But I know that like Larkin, it was bad enough that she just quit the game for like months, and then came back to it and did it again, and then quit for months, and then came back because she would do it like 4 or 5 times in one sitting and just get so frustrated with it. Yeah. And so I see that like because I remember as a kid doing that boss fight and spending like 2 hours on a Saturday just going around in circles, and game over again and having to reload in. It was so frustrating for me as a child. So I completely get it. But after you beat Nasty Nork, though, peace is brought back to the Dragon Realms, and everybody's happy, and Spyro is a local hero. The game gives you a screen that says the adventure continues, and if you want to, you're allowed to jump back into the game to replay worlds and any order that you choose. For Kurt, your story, I'm assuming, ends there.
Yeah, my story ends there. I thought it was really funny because I didn't get all the gems, I didn't get all the eggs, I didn't get all the dragons. Specifically the eggs and the dragons is what makes this funny to me, is because Spyro's like interviewed.
Yeah.
And the interviewer's like, what are you going to do now? And he's like, well, I still have some more treasure to find. And then it just credits. I was like, there are 4 sentient creatures encased in stone that you did not help. You have no concern for their well-being at this point in your life. But yeah, after credits were adorable, by the way. And then after credits, there's another dragon. And he was like, hey, go 100% the game. And I was like, hey, X. And then I just closed the window.
That's fair. I think
tell me about it though. I want to know what happens when you complete it.
I think if I did not actively work on it throughout the game, if I skipped even like 1 or 2 levels, I would not have wanted to go back because it just
I would have had to gone back for like 5 or 6 levels.
and it becomes like a needle in a haystack if you don't try to finish the level in that one sitting because you have to go and kill every single enemy again. Just do it from scratch to make sure you're not.
You're just making it more
missing
tedious on
something.
yourself for no reason.
I agree. So I guess John, if you want to hit this on, what the actual benefits are.
That's great. I'm glad you chose me because that brings us to our very last flight level. Light
Oh my
level.
gosh, thank goodness I didn't complete the
I
game.
know.
I've been
This
so
actually
bad.
was kind of fun.
So-
it was like a free roam type thing almost.
Right.
Okay.
It's exactly what it was. So in this last level, Ganasty's loot, you're just going around his base and collecting the last of the loot. There's a few hundred gems scattered about. There's no enemies that I recall. You literally just fly around with permaflight, and you could just collect all the gems, and that's it. That's how you end the game, is collecting the last bit of gems for your people to get back. Friends.
You could find like a room too that's like Nasty's like bedroom, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like motivational posters
yeah.
up on the wall, but it is like patience is like it's like the old 90s poster. So it's
Yeah.
like a picture like a sunset and it says patience, and underneath it like subtext it says
Motivational.
is for dragons. And so they're all like variations on like stuff like that. So that was kind of fun. He has like a cutout poster of himself as well, like on his mirror.
Mm-hmm.
It's like taped up to it looks like, and a whole bunch of like fan mail, like love letters, all in the corner.
That's hilarious.
So that was a lot of fun. And I will say though, so this is actually a fun thing. So at the very beginning of the game, the intro cutscene, they're like, the dragons now have 12,000, or is it 14,000 treasure? And so to 100% the game, you get 12,000 treasure.
Mm-hmm.
To 120% the game, you go to Nasty's treasure trove and you collect the remaining 2,000, which brings you up to 14,000.
I didn't realize
So that was a
it
nice
much.
Yeah, it's a nice
pretty
wraparound
cool.
way. I was like, when I opened the level, first thing I always did was I clicked the like pause button to see how many gems, how many dragons, and when I got to that and I hit pause, I was like, no. And I saw 2,000. I
It's
was
a
like, I
callback.
can't do this. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, like, 75% of those were 25 gems, so it was actually really easy to collect them. It probably
Yeah.
took like 7 or 8 minutes, but the auto fly or permaflight made it a lot easier as well. Ultimately, I think it was a fun way to finish off the game, extend it a little bit, and for all that work, you actually do get a bonus cutscene in which Spyro's talking about how he's like a celebrity now for collecting all the treasure, and then you get sent right back to the adventure continues. And I guess if you're a masochist like John, you decide you're going to go ahead and do all the additional stuff, which
Joke's
gets
on
you
you.
a-
I did it while I went there the
Target.
first time.
that's good at least. I'm not doing that. If I got like a cutscene, I might consider it, but a lot of times I'm not like a 100%er. But
It tells you
this
what
is a short
levels.
enough game, so
It tells you what levels they're on and what you have to do them. So I just did them as I went. If I missed one, I would go back and do it like off of a recording, and just go finish it. And it makes it a whole lot easier to do things like that. So you're not having to repeat levels exponentially, I would say, like that.
how many hours did you put in to do all this though?
I'm trying to figure out how to check without it covering up your faces with my.
Don't worry about it.
Steam.
We'll talk
Don't
about it
accidentally
later.
reveal any personal info.
I think that
sorry.
when I
I'll
looked
check my
at your
phone.
Steam, it was like 10 hours or so.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of you
I
can check
played-
for me, right?
I played 5.9 hours. Can I check that on your profile?
Yeah, you can.
I know mine was about 6 hours as well for 100%ing it. So I'm sure yours was probably like 8 or 9, at least, John.
10.7 hours.
Yeah, okay, that seems about right. But see, that's another 4 hours of work to do that. And I know that while you're playing, it might not feel like as much. But I knew that I was going to kill any enjoyment I had left for the game if I did that. So I wasn't going to.
That's fair.
But the game, from a wrap up perspective, Some things I was thinking about that I didn't really want to get off in the weeds and during the video. This video, it's about Spyro. It's 26 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
It was made in like a transition period where, things like Mario 64 came out like the year before, and still utilized some things like lives and stuff. And that's one of those like outdated like functions of video games that at the time the industry was still utilizing, but it was trying to like branch out in some ways. So not only do you have lives, but you also have, sparks. And honestly, I don't think the game was difficult enough to warrant having lives. I don't think it really adds anything.
Mm-hmm.
Sly Cooper came years later, but similarly at that point, it was like one of the last probably video games I can think of that had lives as well. And it's just, I don't know. I don't really see the intention, and it just feels like a leftover, part of
Relic.
earlier video games. Exactly.
Having lives is something that has like tried to stick around the same way that having a score is something that tried to stick around. Like, there's no reason for New Super Mario Bros. Wii or New Super Mario Bros. U to have like a score system. Like, no one cares. It's not an arcade machine. You're not putting your name at the top. But yeah, Sly Cooper, a little bit later, Mario Galaxy. The most recent game I can think of with a life system is probably Sonic Mania 2017. I'm not saying that was the last one, but the last one that I have played that I'm aware of. And that's like a callback game, so it very much feels outdated as a system now. Like platformers, like imagine a game like Celeste
That's what I was just thinking of.
with lives. Like, no way.
Oh, it's like it's an artificial difficulty, and
Yeah.
like it makes sense again. This goes back to like the length of this game and system limitations and stuff like that. But I don't think this game is difficult enough to warrant it. But I guess with something like the original Mario games, those games are extremely short, and if you don't have a life system implemented, you could probably run through a lot of those games in like 2 hours. And so the lives, if you're playing, especially like something like the Lost Levels, that could stretch out something that's like a 2.5 to 3 hour game into something that takes you like 20 hours just because of you constantly having to restart and try to remember where these oddball things are going to be at. They're going to punish you.
Did
That's
you
not the
guys
case in this.
did you guys game over in this game?
No.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's just kind of an extra tacked on thing. It was never an issue that there was a live system, but I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's kind of my point. Is like, since I never got even close to game over, and what was the point? I guess if you're a kid, but again, if you're a kid, that just serves to frustrate you and make you not want to play the game. If you're game overing,
If you're struggling that much with it as a kid anyway, then you probably would still get a lengthy experience.
Exactly. So, anyways, any other thoughts at the moment before we go into just like wrap up in general?
Before that, I remember I asked both of you to come up with a few things about the dragons. I asked you to pick out a dragon you thought represented yourself,
Oh, I didn't do the myself.
a dragon that represented everyone else that was going to be on the call, and then your favorite design.
I picked you guys. I forgot the part about me, so give me a sec.
Okay. And I would like you to reveal what you thought yourself was last, after everyone else has already went over what they thought you were most like, just to see if you were right, or if they were right.
So there's a lot of dragons. There's like 85. So there's a lot of
Right. So
a
I
lot of
hope you,
options here.
I hope you picked. I hope you picked beforehand.
I'm scrolling.
So for mine, I actually put it on my phone. So let me grab it real quick.
All right.
So
first, tell us, what is Kurt to you, or should we let Kurt pick his
So-
for himself first before we give him ideas?
I need to go last.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll say I chose for Kurt Latalo,
All right.
who
Let's see.
is I'll let y'all look him up, but for people who are watching this, I'm sure we'll probably
I'll
see him
have
on
it up on the
screen.
screen. Yeah.
Okay, so he is a dragon in, I believe, the Dream Keeper's world, who
Mhm.
has he kind of looks like Jafar, I guess, from Aladdin even has like the genie's lamp.
Yeah.
I'm seeing yeah.
As far as why I chose
Yeah.
him,
Just why? Yeah. What you got?
I don't know. I mean, there's like
This gives off
you
Kurt
look at-
vibes.
I just feel Kurt, but you think like there's 85 dragons, and like out of all these, I'm like I don't really know who looks like who in this, but playing through, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of like Kurt. I just really wrote down the ones I like the most, and then went back to the ones I like the most, and was like, let me see who I can assign these to. Is things that kind of work.
All right.
They're all
For
Oh, hold
very.
on. Let's do all Kurt first. But go ahead.
okay, that works.
I was just gonna say all the dragons are very much like I have one personality trait.
Yeah, well,
and that's fine
yeah.
for what they are. So you're gonna say the one for me,
Yes. I
Okay.
picked for you Unica.
Unica. I mean, I have the full list of all the dragons.
Okay.
How do you spell Unica?
Unika.
Unik. Oh, let's not pop it up when I do Control
So-
F.
Do it
Just-
in Google.
Yeah, do it in Google, put
Yeah.
Unica and then Spyro at the end, and it'll pop it up. So bear with us, audience.
That's Kurt. Is it because
Oh
of the loot?
no! Why that one?
So I
He's got a
picked
cool mustache
I picked
though.
that for Kurt because, well, the mustache, and
It's a big boy.
he plays instruments.
Right.
And he's a musical guy. Yeah.
I said
Do I need
loot
to
at
say
first.
who I think I am?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I forgot to pick one for me. I thought you just said each other. So just quickly
I
looking
might
through
have.
this, going through my memory,
Yeah.
I picked Thomas, who also has an instrument and looks much more like I do. It's a Tom, no H.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, he has a loot.
Granted, they both have string instruments, and I cannot play string instruments to save my life. So, but I appreciate the thought.
But you do wear fedoras just like Thomas.
I haven't worn a fedora since high school jazz band when that was the uniform for a high school jazz band.
He's lying. I saw
I'm
him
not lying.
yesterday.
Okay.
All right, so those were Kurt's. Ryder, do you want to go next?
Yeah, y'all can
All
y'all
right.
can
So,
hit me with it.
Kurt, who did you pick for Ryder?
Who did I pick for a rider? I
Yeah.
picked Roscoe.
Roscoe.
Let me see. Roscoe. All right. I
I
appreciate that.
was just like,
Why
this
is
guy
that?
is like, this guy gives me rider vibes.
Okay. All right.
He
I like him.
he's tall and
He's
lanky.
the only skinny one from this from
He's got
the
a-
bog.
He's got a fun personality, and he'd probably say something real dumb with a lot of confidence, and that's what I love about Ryder.
All right. I picked Cedric. And Cedric I picked because he's got glasses and he's got his nose down in a book.
Fair.
Okay,
So-
fair.
So John went with the smart side of your personality, and I went with the goofy side of your
Unhinged.
All
personality.
right. And Ryder, who did you pick for yourself?
Cedric also looks like Charizard. I didn't notice that the first time, but I'm looking at him now, and he has like the exact
Yeah.
same color palette almost. So for myself, I actually picked Revelo,
Revelo.
who is I'll wait for y'all to get him pulled up, but
Yeah.
he's
Okay.
a knitting dragon who's using his tail for a rocking chair. And I just really liked him. I do actually rock a lot in my chair. It's like a
Mhm.
nervous habit for me. And he has glasses, I guess, but I don't knit, so the
Not
knitting
yet.
part doesn't really work. Not
This
yet.
one kind of made me think of you as well, but I'd already written down Roscoe, and I was like, I'm just gonna stick with Roscoe because I bet I didn't remember who Roscoe was at that point. I was like, I was probably my gut instinct was probably correct.
Okay. All right, guys. My turn. All right. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. What you got?
So I got Cyrus. For you.
Cyrus. Spyro.
He's just a cool wizard
Yeah.
dude. And I don't know, like
Oh,
he's
he's
got
great.
the hat on.
Yeah.
You got to have the
Got my
hat on.
Yeah.
He's got some
Requirement.
cool like curly horns too, and he's got
He
the
looks
cool little
very
staff
smart.
and stuff.
All right. All right. I like it. What you got, Kurt?
I said Gildas. because he's very kind, has good advice, and he's very artsy. And you are secretly very artsy.
All right.
I thought
like
about
it. I like it.
Gildas too. Actually, I was trying to see if there was one that made more like pottery or something because I couldn't remember. But I couldn't
There's
find
only
any that
one
kind of
person
matched
that's
that.
holding like a piece of pottery,
Yeah.
but they're like a jittery old person who's like spilling water out of the pot everywhere.
All right. And to round it off, for myself, I chose Capano.
Capano.
I'll let you look them up.
Copano with a C.
Copano.
Oh, what a sweetie.
Ah, I like him too.
And I chose
Okay.
him
Well,
because he's got his
Angel
cup
mug.
of tea, and I drink a cup of tea every workday morning. And
Nice.
he just got some awesome looking wings, and I was like, this is just perfect. I almost chose the other guy that also holds a cup. I'm pretty sure he holds coffee though. But then I realized his dragon horns had gauges, and I was like, I don't. And he has he has a nose ring. I don't like gauges or nose rings, so sorry, comment section. So Capano.
Tell him why he's wrong.
Capano is why I chose this one.
a good choice. I think we all did a great job, guys.
Good job, team.
We did it.
So I had like a million other dragons that I wrote down, but I'm not going to go into it because it'll take too long. But
Mhm.
they're really, really good designs for all the dragons. I'd tell people to go watch like a video of just like the dragons if they want to, but even better, just go play the game.
Oh wait, I forgot. I asked you to do one more thing. It was your favorite design. Do you still want to go over those? Just your top one.
My top?
Yeah, and
Okay, I have my top easily enough.
I'll start with mine. In case Kurt needed a minute. I chose Conan, with a C. And that is because he's just awesome. I mean, look at the shield, look at the spear, and he's got horns that look like a mustache to me.
He's like a Don Quixote.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
So, sorry.
I like
he has a
him too.
mustache made of little horns. It's great.
It is, yeah. I didn't even noticed that first time. I just assumed it was a dragon who could grow hair. My favorite, I think, is probably Obasi. O-B-A-S-I. He is like a jester,
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
kind of.
Which is funny because you didn't like the jesters.
No, but I like this dude because he's cool.
That's fair.
I don't really have any reason other than I liked his jester hat and I
And
liked
that's
his,
all you need.
his staff, and that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Kurt.
My favorites, I can't pick one.
All right.
I really like Gildas, the one I said you look like.
Okay.
I think that's a really fun design. I love the giant paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
I also like Gavin. That's the one you said you didn't like.
Oh,
Yeah, I like him for reasons I'm not going to think too hard about. And then I also really like Latif and Cyprin. And Latif is like the one from the Dreamweavers who's like super meditating, like I don't
He's
know,
reached
looks
enlightenment.
yeah, it looks super cool. And then Cyprin is my favorite one from the swamp location. He's like the most probably insulting stereotypical like Cajun design where he's just got a big straw hat on and he's laying down and his belly's like 3 times
Yep.
the size of him and he's just laying on its side scratching it. And he's got like a cool swirl design. I really like Cyprin.
It's funny because those are actually Cyprin and Latif are two of the ones that I actually wrote down as well.
okay.
They're both very cool.
I
Oh,
really
and,
like
and Lindar. I like Lindar. He was like the time scientist in the magic world.
Liked him too. I liked all of them.
Yeah, they were
Okay.
all
Yeah.
really good designs. Like there's no designs where I'm like, oh, that's just lazy or that's derivative. They're all really unique.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's my segue done. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it was fun.
Overall, let's just wrap this up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with the criticisms that have been brought up. I do think there's some like frustrations that are a result of this game being ultimately a reskin of a 26-year-old game. I'm not going to just go like super hard into defending them or disparaging them one way or another, because ultimately the goal of this is a remaster. So I'm going to judge it off of, partially the time period, and partially give it some some leeway because of the time period. I think ultimately this is a really fun game. I would recommend it to pretty much anybody because of the very light difficulty. I think that's something you can jump in and out of relatively easily because the levels don't take very long. And I do appreciate that even though there's a lot of frustration when it comes to 100%ing, it's not a requirement at all. And I don't think it's difficult for anybody to finish the game with any level of real gaming expertise, because there's enough dragons, and dragons are really what you need to progress to the next world. And there's more than enough of them scattered throughout that you can play each level and this very, very superficial detail and still get what you need to progress the game. It was fun. Like I said, it's a nice trip down memory lane, and ultimately I might end up saying that Spyro 2 will be a choice for a future backlog crew for me, because I think that's just head and shoulders above this. And ultimately, like I said, I enjoyed this, so positive marks for me.
Just as long as you never pick Crash Bandicoot, I will go insane from trying to collect everything.
That's the name of the game, John. It's the Insane Trilogy. Let's do it.
Anyway, Kurt, your take on the game? Yeah.
Yeah. So Crash Bandicoot. No. I was really excited to play this. I'm really glad that I played it. I'm interested and definitely willing to play the next one, just to see kind of how this series evolves. But if you're saying to me, Kurt, I want to play a game, or even more specifically, I want to play a 3D platformer, even a 3D platformer from like the 90s, what should I play? I would name a lot of games before this one. Ultimately, I wouldn't recommend this game. It just has too many flaws, and the art design's great. The characters are really fun. It's beautiful. It's just got too many rough edges mechanically and design wise for me to say, hey, you should spend time playing this game.
You're allowed to be wrong. It's fine. Go ahead, John.
You guys can love this game. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right.
I'm sharing my opinion. That's why I'm here.
Yep, exactly. All right. So for me, I would definitely recommend this game. I'd recommend it to the lower end of the bracket. My nephew, I would recommend this game to him. My grandma, I would recommend this game to her. It's just a fun, all around, easy to pick up game, like Ryder was saying. Honestly, there are some levels that could be tedious, could be annoying, but like we said, the 100%ing is completely optional. If you're just in it to have fun, I would recommend this to somebody. Overall, it's easy to pick up because even though we already hammered into this a good bit, there's only so much you can do. You flame things, you charge things, but that's one of the simplistic things that makes this easy for other people to pick up, is that there's not complicated processes you have to go through or understandings you need to have about games in general. But it's just something you can pick up, have fun, and just enjoy. So, yeah, I would recommend this to anybody. So, that's where I'm at.
Nice. So that's 2 out of 3.
And our votes matter more because it says, yes, Spyro's good.
Certified press A to talk.
I need like a stamp of approval.
We do. I've been making that asset for a while, and I just...
Well, do it now. Right now.
I'll
There's
do
where
it
it is
right
right now.
It's
Right
9:30
now.
PM. I'll start right away.
All right, so we
Okay.
did it. We got
So-
another one that got the seal of approval.
Overall, like I said, I enjoyed it. Thank you guys for playing it, and for taking the time to talk about it with me. It's a fun thing for me to go back and look through some nostalgia. I'm sure John, you seem to feel some similar ways.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, Kurt, even if you wouldn't recommend it, I'm glad that you got to check something off of a I'm assuming this is probably on your backlog list for you too,
Oh, for
just
sure.
because of the gap that it was in. So
For sure. It
some closure there.
It definitely checked off kind of my list of games, just like historically, that I want to play. So yeah, I'm so grateful for the time spent.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention before we go, we've already picked out our next game, and I just wanted to touch on that. It's going to be Mega Man Battle Network 1 for the GameCube. Sorry, Game Boy Advance. I was just joking.
And that will be sometime in the future. Congratulations, Joseph and Sam, on your wedding. We're doing this as an intermediary game. We're very happy for both of you. After the wedding, in theory, we'll have Joe on with us. We're all very excited for that. So,
Yeah.
nothing else.
If you're watching this in a timely manner, then please feel free to go ahead and play some Mega Man, and you can, I don't know, if you leave some comments about Mega Man on this video, then we'll read them. We'll discuss it as well whenever we finally talk about it. And now we're going to let Ryder do his outro.
Okay. Well, again, thank you guys for watching this episode of Backlog Crew here at Press Data Talk. Again, I'm here today with John and Kurt. Thank you both for signing on. My name is Ryder. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.
Bye.